What's going on, everybody? I am Jeremy, and you guys are watching Morphs. I actually came up with a new name for the show, even. So I'm going to run it past you guys once we bring on our guest, because I'm going to get his opinion on it too, because Eric's got a lot of expertise, I think, in this whole podcasting industry type of deal on this end. So we get his feedback on it as well. But everybody, we're going to have a great show tonight. We've got Eric Burke of EB Morelia and MPR Morelia Python Radio. He does a live stream called Carpets and Coffee, which tons of great information. So make sure you guys check it out. Also, check out all of his links in the description down below, please. But let's bring Eric out. What's up, Eric?
What's going on? How you doing?
Not much, dude. I'm doing good. Everybody, we were catching up a little bit there backstage. That's what the holdup was. You know how I get to talking, and I just can't shut the hell up sometimes.
I feel the pain.
That's why, folks, this is going to be a great live stream tonight. Very thankful everybody for tuning in. Let's say a hi to some of the people here, because you brought in some people here, Eric, and actually I've gotten to know some of these people just basically from the last time you were on the show.
Oh, okay. What's up, everybody?
Lance, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. It says, bring on the Podfather. Adam from Proper Rose. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Adam's always listening in while he's feeding his snakes. So
nice.
Thank you, Adam, for tuning in. Everybody, check out Adam's live stream on Tuesdays. Another great cast that I love to listen to. He's always got some really good guests on. I think this week he has Adam Wickens from Wickens Wicked Reptiles. God, I cannot speak tonight. That's also just a hell of a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is.
Ken, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. We've got Jason from Earl's Exotics. What's going on, Jason? Thanks for tuning in. My brother Rob, what's up, dude? Thanks for tuning in. Nathan from Infinite Possible Pythons, which is also a show sponsor, folks, but we'll roll into that stuff here in a little bit. But Nate, thanks for tuning in, bro. Really jealous, bro, that I did not get an invite to be part of the meeting of the minds on Saturday. You probably figured out you're gonna see me this Saturday anyway, so the hell with me. Anyway, just had to give you some shit, dude. James, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. D&K Reptiles, thanks for tuning in. John and Christine, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Phil, my brother, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Okay, Adam says Wickens is on Tuesday. All right. Brandon, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Brandon will be a guest on the show here in another couple of weeks, so be ready for that one. Nate. I have to give you your own excuse, Nate. It's okay, bro. But anyway, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself. So how'd you get into the Morelia aspect of the hobby? And then what got you into doing the podcasting end of it?
Morelia. So I've always been a Python person. I've always had a fascination with pythons. I don't really know why. And for a long time, I was into like Burmese pythons. They were my favorite. They were the first python I had. God, I think I was 10 years old when I got. God, it was probably not recommended at this point, but that was the 80s, and that was a different time.
I was gonna say that was a completely different way of keeping back then.
Yeah, that was a different time. I went through, I called the various stages of keeping. I went through the Noah's Ark thing where you have this, that, the other. And, went through life. I was also a musician into my 20s. I kind of got out of reptiles until I settled down in my 30s. And when I got back into them, I started to get back into pythons. And I got divorced a few years after, maybe I was like 33 or something like that. And the one snake that stayed with me through all of that was a carpet python, because they were just, regardless of temperature, where we were, what was going on, or just super easy to take care of, and never any issues, never any problems. So I started getting drawn to them because I kind of started moving away from the big snakes and wanted something a little more manageable. I felt like if I was going to get into ball pythons, because I was going to get into them for a while, but I felt like I just wouldn't be able to catch up. When I came back,
I feel you on that one. I really feel you on that one.
Yeah, when I came back into the reptile hobby, I was blown away by like what is going on with ball pythons, because prior to that I just knew normals, these wild imports, and I'm sure all these crates that I would go through and stuff, there's probably morphs in there that I wasn't even paying attention to. But I don't know, carpet pythons were always exciting to me, and I started to take a deep dive down into them, and I just love the variability of them. I love the aspect of keeping them. I love the arboreal aspect of it, that they were always out and about. I love that the whole idea of they're not too big, but they're big enough to sort of be, give you some impressive type of look, Yeah. I always loved the big chunky heads that they had. And I just felt like nobody was doing it. And I like to preach that do what you love and don't worry about what other people are doing, and sort of like, what would it be like, make your own niche in the hobby type of thing,
Blaze your own trail, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I got into that, and at the time there was a podcast, it's probably the OG of reptile podcasts, called Reptile Radio, but they were like big time ball python influenced, right? Because they were ball python keepers, which even just listening to that was just, to me, blew my mind. Like, oh my God, I'm listening to people talk about snakes. This is great. I had like a 3-hour commute every day back and forth to work, and it just was perfect that I could listen to people talk about snakes and then just apply what they were talking about with ball pythons, but apply it to carpet pythons. And I got the idea. I was like, well, maybe I should do a podcast. I don't even know if they called it a podcast back then. This is like 2010. And
honestly, that's probably before a podcast even had a name.
Yeah, they weren't even, you'd say, you want to come on my podcast? And they'd be like, what is that? Now it's like mainstream. About? Yeah. So yeah, I just sort of said, I got some tips from the guys that ran Reptile Radio, and I kind of like just started my own thing, because there's a lot of misinformation about carpets, the size, the nasty, they're biting all the time. They need like 98% humidity in order to survive, and just all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, maybe if we straighten out some of those misconceptions, maybe they would be more popular, or more people that were looking for something in that style of python could get into it. So yeah, here we are. What, 12 years later, 11 years later, whatever it is.
I was gonna say, I think you said something like you're the longest running podcast there is, right?
For reptiles? Yeah.
Yeah. That in itself is free. That there is why people call you the Podfather.
Yeah, it's a funny name, but yeah, that's why.
Hey, if the shoe fits, man, you got to wear it, and you should be proud of being able to produce great content like that for that long, and build up the audience that you've got, because you've got a great community, like you really do.
That was the other thing. That I really got into when it came to picking carpet pythons to sort of plant my flag. I love the people, man. The people were awesome, not that any other group is not awesome, but I just had just gelled with the people that way, because I consider myself like a snake nerd, right? I guess I'm into like the business side of it to a certain extent, but I'm more into, the actual snake and what makes it tick, and why does it do the things it does, and seeing them in the wild and that kind of thing. That's sort of like where my mind goes, and when I talk to people that are sort of in that same mindset, you just learn things that just blow you away, that little things that you would never, I guess, even see, pay attention to. And we were talking about maternal incubation before we started, like just things like that, seeing a python, a baby python hatching out of an egg, as mom loosens up her coils and you see that little head popping out. It's just, then you see another one, and then you got like 5 heads popping out of mom's coils. Just
that would be neat. That would be neat.
Yeah. And I think I see him in the chat here calling me a nerd.
I was just getting ready to click on Owen there.
I know for a fact that the reason that Morelia Python Radio has been around as long as it has is because me and Owen he was another one. We lived close by each other forever. And we just, I put an ad up on the Morelia forum for a co-host because I did my first episode by myself. It was just terrible, man. It's hard to talk. It's hard to talk to yourself.
I do the solo stuff every once in a while because I feel like sometimes maybe like it gives me that chance to update a couple of things, within, what's, going on here. It also allows me to get a little bit more specific feedback maybe from the people that are tuning in. But it is so much harder to run a nice show by yourself, because at some point you're like, wow, like, are people really listening to me, or did they just tune me out like an hour ago?
Yeah. And so we did the show with him, and I guess in the very beginning it was kind of that's Owen's favorite episode because it's the episode that made me come and find him. And I don't know, we've become, I was in his wedding. We've become great friends. Probably, he's probably my best friend in herpetoculture at this point. I mean, we've been together for 12 years now. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's just when you find that person that you gel with, I think, because me and Owen, oddly enough, we kind of look at things a little bit differently. And we've kind of it's weird how we started here, and then over the time we've sort of changed sides. I don't know. It's just strange. Because when I first met him, he was he had just coastal carpets, maybe a couple coastal carpets. And now he's he just got a clutch of rough scales. And I know that's a huge thing for him. And that's pretty freaking awesome. Congrats, that he got that, I know he's been working on that. He's bred white lips. He's to me he's an underrated assassin, man. He doesn't come across like he's this awesome snake breeder, but he's bred like crazy. And he's you asked him well, what did you do? Again, here I am, the snake learner, trying to figure out exactly what he did. And he's just sort of, I just put the girl snake with the boy snake and I got baby snakes. And I'm just that makes for great content, man. Way to go.
The end.
Yeah.
I got to meet Owen up at Hamburg. God, it would have been 2 shows ago, I think. Maybe. No, I think it's 2 shows ago. And he was a hard person to actually get to have a conversation with, because everybody kept coming and they just stand there and talk forever with him. Just I was trying to wait my turn in line, so to speak. But at the same time, I didn't want to look like a jerk, or not like a jerk, but like a fool or something, like a fanboy type of deal. But it's at the same time, I wanted to be able to talk to him just because of watching you guys, and he had a carpet on there, and he's gonna know exactly the one I'm talking about, because as soon as I saw it, it reminded me of the one that Mike Curtin from Scattershot has.
Oh, okay.
Really bright, glowing yellow zebra, and I was like, is that one for sale? And he goes, yeah, no.
Of course not. It never is, right?
It's more of those, bragging right pieces type of deal. But man, that thing was gorgeous.
Well, that's the hard. I was gonna say that's the hard thing about selling carpets at a show, right? If you have baby carpets, nobody gives 2 flying craps about whether because they're just gray snakes and whatever, and ball pythons come out of the egg just whoa, you're just holy shit,
Yep.
And it's hard to sell them, and then it's hard to sort of sell the idea that this is going to turn into a neon yellow and jet black snake,
Well, and like it's kind of funny how the world works in that aspect. Like you said, like ball pythons come out, and that's the greatest. They're going to look right there.
Yeah.
Is after that very first shed. That is the greatest that snake's going to look.
Right.
And there's some genes that can help it age better, but still, that's the best that thing's going to look. When the carpets come out, everybody, like Eric said, I mean, they're not the prettiest looking snake off the start. They're kind of like the ugly duckling type thing. But the end result, if you just sit along and go along for the ride, the end result is just magnificent.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many, so many subs. That's the other thing that's kind of intimidating about carpets, especially if you're coming from the ball pythons, as you can tell, right? As you can attest to, there's all these subspecies and species, and nobody agrees on it, and should you cross? Should you not cross?
That right things. There.
Yeah.
Can you cross this with this? Is that okay? Or
yeah,
that
it's just a different mindset. You're breeding ball pythons, you're breeding a desert ghost, pastel, lesser, whatever banana, and you put it together, and it's you don't have to worry about any of that. It's just I'm combining this, see what comes out.
So, yeah, like that was one thing that it was hard for me. Coming into the carpet world, because I started off with the ball pythons, but like you said, ball pythons, you're just mixing genetics like crazy, trying to make something really neat and pretty. Yeah. Where the carpets, like, you've got to think your pairings out a little bit more, because you have, it seems like it's very divided, where you have your purist groups, and then you have your groups that are okay with mixing and certain subspecies together. So it's kind of like you gotta watch how you walk that line. And
yeah,
I had Riley on the one time, and I was picking his brain. I was like, all right, you have your people that like your jungles, pure jungles. You've got people that like your coastals, pure coastals, but then you've got the jag, which is technically a coastal.
Yep.
But it mixed with the jungle, it makes one of the most beautiful carpets out there in the world today, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like, now if you do that, is that okay, or is that frowned upon? And then like, it just gets it's a whole different like ballpark.
I think so. I'll put it in a nutshell, right? The issue I think that a lot of the purists have is the fact that you can't get imports in. You can't get new blood. You can't get, what does he say? It's a pain in the ass to learn ball pythons over carpets. Well, there's like, how many morphs are there now? It's got to be hundreds, right?
Yeah, I think there's probably like over 200 morphs.
Holy shit.
It is a pain in the ass. And then you got to learn which morphs you can't mix with the other morphs, because it's a combo, and it is a nightmare compared to carpets. I agree, Jason.
Yeah. And then you get, the thing that I find fascinating about that particular niche of the hobby, I should say it's not a niche, it's probably like the biggest part of the python hobby for sure, is that you guys will look at like, look at this the pattern on the side of the belly, and like, like what? And then the next thing you know, you're like popping out, like it's a yellow belly, and you're popping out, what are they, super stripes when you yellow bellies and all that kind of, that whole complex.
Yellow belly makes an all white snake, and you're
just like, what?
Yeah, and there's even some things where, like, to me, I still don't see the freaking difference. I don't know how anybody even saw the difference, because I look at it,
right.
And I'm like, hey, if you say it's there,
right,
all the power to you.
Yeah.
But they see something, and it makes, when you combine that with another one like it makes something really badass. It's like, I don't know what the hell you saw, but okay.
Yeah, so like with ball pythons, I think it's still imports still happen with ball pythons, right? Okay. So you're still getting, imports in. Whereas with carpets, obviously, other than if you're getting it from Papua New Guinea, you can't get anything other than Papuan carpets that are going to be either wild caught or farm hatched or whatever it would be. Otherwise, everything's in Australia. They don't export; it's illegal. But stuff made it here legally through zoos before they banned them, that kind of stuff. So like those lines have been around forever. So the purists are trying to sort of pay it forward to the next generation of the hobby, right? They don't want to see how it, it gets.
They don't want to see it.
Get next.
I get that.
Yeah. Then the morphs started coming into the game where, when I first started in the carpets, there's 2 morphs. There was a jag and there was a tiger, and that was it, and then all of a sudden you had people working out on bino, and then Xandic came. Now people want to make snows, and then, you had the hypo or the caramel, and then the hypo came along. You had this red one, and, the zebra came along, and then down in Australia now they're down there, and they don't give a shit about purity, man. They're just pushing everything together and making crazy snakes, But yeah, that's really the difference. I think it's died down. It used to be real intense. Like people used to get real intense about it, but I think it's kind of chilled now, because I think the thing is, at the end of the day, number one, people will say about purity, and it's a pure jungle carpet, or it's a pure coastal carpet, or pure Darwin carpet, or whatever. But you don't know. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you just don't know. You don't know if some breeder somewhere along the line crossed it with a diamond, and that's why it's yellow like it is. So there are some lines that you can say that are pure. If you really want to get into that type of thing, my advice, and this is sort of why I went this route, is to just get into popcorn carpets. Yeah, there you go. Jake's got
it. Riley just he's been picking up some nice pop ones too.
Yeah, I just picked up a 1.2 group of wild caught pop ones that are, oh my God, they're just amazing. So the thing, and that was the other thing, right? That was always my thing. Again, trying to go a different route, because when I came into it, jungles were what everybody was doing. Guys like Mike Curtin, even Owen, he makes killer jungles too. But how can I compete with him? Come on, man. Mike's snakes are neon yellow and jet black, and guys like Andrew Paris and Christian Parr. He's another one. He's out here in Pennsylvania. He has probably maybe the nicest group of jungles on the East Coast. I mean, really? His collection is incredible. And I just feel like then the other groups get neglected. And, if you saw wild jungle carpet, it doesn't look anything like what's in captivity. It's not even close.
I believe it, because
they're not neon yellow.
They're more like a olivey color, color, aren't they?
Yeah. And it depends on where you're seeing them. Farther north, they're usually black and white. That's like the gelatin type of ones. And what used to be what we used to draw these lines in the sand, what was a jungle and what was a coastal. And now the new book came out, and it's sort of said, we were wrong on that. They're probably all the same. Okay, so we were fighting all this fight about, oh, you can't cross this with this and this. And then, they did the genetics, and turns out that they're a lot closer than people thought.
See, that was something Mike and I had talked about a couple of different, we talked about it on here briefly when he was on, but then Mike and I had messaged, we messaged back and forth every once in a while, and we got to talking about that. And he goes, yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens here in the next year or so after all this new information's coming out now. And
yeah. I think the jungle group of carpet pythons kind of accepted the fact that there was a possibility that somewhere in some of the lines and stuff that they were crossed. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? I mean, they're not getting put back into the wild. It's not like we're breeding them to put them back into the wild. We're breeding them because we want a pretty snake, and I don't know. I've changed my mind on that. I used to be, I've gone back and forth over the years. I did crazy morph combinations and stuff, made some crazy stuff. And that's why I say me and Owen flip, because now he's doing it. And I'm more of the purist, where I'm just sort of working with normals and localities and stuff. So, what are you going to do? Go through back and forth. But
you know what, though? In my experience with the carpets and stuff, there's no such thing as a normal. Everyone's freaking different. You can't say like go off one basic pattern
No.
and say that this describes that animal, because the
Yeah.
next one beside it isn't going to look anything like it anyway.
And you really want to blow your mind. Look at wild carpets. If you look at wild carpet pythons, then you're going to see, like, you know, there's coastal carpets in Brisbane that are orange. They're basically orange. Like there's some kind of hypo create. You know, that's why on Carpets and Coffee, I always like to share a wild carpet python, because until I went and saw them in the wild, my idea of that whole thing was just wrong. It was just wrong, you know. And it's always funny to me. It's like, we're telling Australians what's in their backyard. You know, here we are in America with like this limited tiny gene pool. And we're like, nah, this is the pure one, man. You know, and they're like, well, wait a minute.
I'll go outside. I'll find you a pure one right now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I don't know. I don't know. At the end of the day, let's just keep snakes and be happy. You know, that kind
I
of
agree.
It's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, and here's my thing. Since he came out, look at that, Biggs. How can you?
Yeah, look at that snake. Come on, man.
That.
The head pattern. Look at that head and the heat pits.
As he tries to come up to the camera, but no, his head pattern, like it. And I'm not gonna. And it should have been a sign to not get him to an extent.
Yeah.
But on the head, it looks like a demon head.
Yeah.
Like it looks like the head of a demon, because it's got like the horns, the eyes, like a mouth. And when I first got it from Pedro there at Funky Morelia, is who produced
Oh, yeah,
it.
he's an awesome guy. Yeah.
That was Mamacita to Shockwave, I think was his name.
Mm-hmm.
It was a zebra he had. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I saw a head pattern, and it was supposed to be a female. It ended up being a male as we went into the breeding season this year. Excuse me. But what should have been the ticket was the demon head with me, because the second, like, left him settle in for like a month, maybe about 2 months. I started trying to work on the handling thing, and man, he would bite the living hell out of me for like forever.
Yeah.
And it got like the last time he bit me, like when I was free handling him, he got me 10 times.
Yeah.
One handling.
Holy
I was
shit.
refused to put him back right away because I wanted to end the session on a good note. So I'd let him get the biting out of his system. And then when he finally calmed down, I'd put him back then. Well, after that, that's when I started using gloves to work with him, and it broke the nippiness of him. Like, I guess it didn't give him the heat signature anymore to follow as much.
Right.
And it made him, like, I worked with him like that for like, God, 2 years.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, you know. I mean, like when we talk about that on like MPR or something like that, it's sort of like, yeah, they can be nippy. Well, I guess my first thought is like, if you're keeping a python and you think you're not going to get bit, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't. And the funny thing is, it's like I've been bit by more ball pythons than carpet pythons, and I've had a collection of up to 400 different pythons at one time. And I don't know if I'm the carpet python whisperer. I don't know, man.
I was gonna say, you're gonna have to come here to the barbecue then, Eric, in July, and when I have all these babies, you're gonna have to talk to them once.
So I think it's like so this again is understanding how the snake works, right? To me, I just kind of know what their behavior means, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, and I can sort of, I guess, avoid it or calm them down. Or whereas with a ball python, it's so, as you know, it's completely different handling. You know.
I always look at ball pythons as the lights are on. You don't know if somebody's home at all. There's always somebody home with the carpets because you just watch them and they're always thinking, they're taking it all in.
I wonder if, like, you know how, again, this is just an idea that just popped in my head as you said that. I wonder if it has to do with food response, right? Because for a carpet python, they're in a tree, they're hanging out, they're waiting for something to come by, and they're very much an ambush predator. And I'm not saying the ball pythons aren't, but I don't know if they're I don't know. It just seems like they have it's just different the way they do it. It just seems like they're not as they're not they're not as they're not like a trap waiting to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess that's how I would explain it. Like you're walking by and that thing is waiting, and if you make the wrong move, it's kind of like if you want to see what that's really like, work with scrubs. And
I've heard I've seen a few things with scrubs
because they watch you. They're like they actually keen in on your face. So they're going for your face.
They're going for what counts.
Yeah. Maybe it's like think about the body structure. Like a ball python isn't going to have the same strike range as say a carpet python. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just I guess that's where I'm thinking maybe they're different. Yeah, so
carpets definitely have a lot longer of a strike range than a ball.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Jason here says he has a 10-year-old normal male that'll hiss and light you up if you're not paying attention.
I was at the Southern Carpet Fest years ago, and I was there at Bill Stiegel's place, and he has a big collection of ball pythons, and so it's the day before, so we're helping him clean and all, and we're going through. I think I got bit by 4 ball pythons in that. I'm like, what the hell? These are supposed to be the nice snake. What's going on here?
So. He just gave you the section to work with of the jerk.
Yeah, maybe. Could be. Watch this. We'll mess with Burke. He'll come over here and play with these ball pythons.
Well, the trash talking, he's done. Let's see how he does that.
Yeah.
All right, before we go any farther here, we gotta thank the sponsors, the sponsors of this week's episode, Eric. So those sponsors would be my good friend Nathan at Infinite Possible Pythons, folks. If you're looking at getting maybe into the Bang gene and some of the other killer stuff that Nathan is working with, definitely keep your eyes out and follow him on all of his social media platforms, especially Instagram, to keep tabs of what's going on there. And on top of it is also your one-stop shop for all your branding needs. If you need tablecloths for shows, backdrops, business cards, shirts, all that swag stuff, stickers, hit Nathan up. He will get you all fixed up. Like I said, Nathan's got some killer ball python projects. Also working with Chihuahua geckos, however you want to say it. And then on top of it, he's doing some scaleless corn snake stuff. So keep an eye out on what Nathan's doing. And he's got some killer stuff pumping out of there. And he's got some really awesome pairings this season. So definitely keep an eye out and check him out. And my other good friend, Chris at S Reptilia, which is basically a one-stop shop for all of your reptile needs, unless you need a lizard of some sort. Chris can't help you out with the lizard. Snakes, he can help you out with blood pythons, boas, ball pythons. He's got colubrids, like different types of colubrids. Chris has just so much going on there. Chances are he's probably got what you're looking for. So definitely check him out. If you're on the eastern side of PA, he can hook you up with rats as well. And he is Pennsylvania's distributor of Cocoa to Go and the Chipper, which in my opinion is the best cocoa substrate on the market. So check Chris out, hit him up. Like I said, everybody's links are in the description down below. And then I got to drop this because everybody, if you aren't using Husbandry Pro, there's a link in the description. It just lets Husbandry Pro know that I sent you, but we are affiliated with them. But man, it's the best reptile record keeping and tracking software there is on the market. It doesn't matter what species of reptile you're working with. Husbandry Pro will work with it. And it just, as far as keeping records, transferring records to new buyers, for the Morelia aspect, if you're worrying about lineage, this is another great way to track lineage as well. So definitely check it out, and free 30-day trial. You can't go wrong, folks. And last but not least, I'm not affiliated with them yet, hoping to. We're kind of working on it. But Redline Shipping, I've started using Redline Shipping this year. I used to use Ship Your Reptiles. It's still just as good of quality as Ship Your Reptiles. I love working with Redline Shipping so far this year. And the prices, folks, are way, way better. You get the same grade A service Robin is amazing to work with. So definitely try Redline shipping. If you haven't already, use code Robin60 to get 60% off of your next 2 shipments. And that's my spiel, everybody. My brother cool. Danny, he always gives me so much crap. He says that it's like 5 minutes of like infomercials type of deal. Like he rides me so hard about it. I just tell him, it's like, Danny, it's like, just tune it out for that time.
Fast forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We got a couple of people in here I wanted to say a hi to real quick that jumped in before we get to moving on. Ed, my buddy Ed Stemp. Ed, I cannot wait for this Saturday, dude. Ed actually, Eric, just so you know, built my PVC enclosures for my carpet python, so I'm picking them up.
Oh, nice.
Saturday. So, folks, I'm hoping it won't be that live, but I'm hoping by the next live stream, we'll have a completely new backdrop, which will just be a nice thing of the carpet pythons behind me. So
nice.
I'm super excited about that. Awesome PVC stuff. Really nice perches. I'm excited to have them here. So, Ed, thanks for tuning in, brother. Greatly appreciate it. And Kike, what's going on, dude? Thank you very much for tuning in with us tonight. I appreciate seeing you in the audience. Matt, what's up, bro? Thanks for tuning in. Jake from the Ophidiarium, thank you very much for tuning in, dude. Greatly appreciate it. And, of course, we did give Owen a shout-out. But, Owen, thanks for tuning in, bro. We definitely got to get you on here as well because I did talk to him about it. He seemed a little hesitant maybe, but, hey, maybe after tonight he'll be like, you know what, that dude's not that bad. We'll let it fly. We'll have on.
Owen likes to send me out for the press.
Oh, shoot. We actually you'll have to let me know if you are planning on coming to barbecue then, Eric, because we can get Owen an invite as well.
Oh, yeah, that's around the 4th of July, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, July 1st, yep.
Okay. I'll let you know, yeah, for sure.
Eric, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Greg, what's up, brother? Thanks for tuning in. Let's see here. Did that get me caught up? Glenn, what's up? Thanks for hopping in. Yes, Team Redline. Yes, I'm really liking Redline shipping, dude. Really, really like it. You better bring a box truck, Jeremy, for all the stuff you're picking. He's not lying. I'm getting 3 4x2x2 enclosures.
Okay.
I'm bringing home like 5 female ball pythons from Nathan. And then on top of it, if I have room, I might be bringing some tiers for my Hatchling, my ARS 1065 rack for my brother Danny, which I'm getting. So I've got a Silverado and it's got the full, extended cab on it. So the back of it's pretty big because my daughter can run back and forth side to side. She's got room to be crazy. And I've got a 6-foot bed. So I don't know if I can fit all of this in one trip. I'm thinking I'm going to have to do 2 different trips because something's not going to fit.
Right.
Jason says, I use Redline, awesome customer service. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Zach, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. 12 likes, people, 25 here. Yes, get those likes up, people, please. Greatly appreciate all the support. And if you are new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I try to have awesome guests like this on, if I remember how to point, every week. And, it kind of varies. I'm trying to get a different species of, people that work with different species on just because I love ball pythons, folks, but there's more to this hobby and industry than just ball pythons. I love the Morelia aspect of it. I'd love to get some blood python people on here,
Got to hit up Matt Minatola, man. He's the man.
Who?
Matt Minatola? Philly herpticulture? Dude, he has the best Borneo short tails, I think, I would say in the world. His oh my God. And Matt's a cool guy. And he lives outside of Philly now, but he used to live in Philly. So he's local. Yeah.
You'll have to send me his name through our Instagram chat and I'll hit him up once because that's another species there. Just the blood pythons, Borneos, and the Sumatrans, they've got just a bad rap. And I had 2 that were freaking awesome. Maybe I just had the only 2 out there that were awesome. I don't know, but
no, yeah. Matt has amazing animals, and Again, it's like, I think this is the thing I learned. So over the years, I've kept, I think, 37 different species of python, right? And what I've learned is, I used to think a python is a python is a python is a python, and that is not true at all. It is not true. Like, what my experience, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but in my experience, ball pythons need more humidity than carpet pythons do.
Yeah.
Or I should say that carpet pythons are probably more resilient to not having humidity, where I found in my experience that if you don't have the ball python's humidity dialed in just right, you're going to have crappy sheds and all this kind of stuff, whereas a carpet, it can be like 30% humidity and you get a perfect shed without, they're just resilient. I mean, you know what I mean? They're just, and they come from different environments and stuff like that. So, and that's the thing, right? Their body language. And I think somebody said earlier, just like reading that, and I think I'm so used to carpet pythons that it's hard for me to, what I call the short pythons, like short tails and ball pythons and stuff. It's hard for me. I think I'm trying to hold it like a carpet, and it's not. Which is probably why I get nailed. And it's the same thing in reverse for people that keep ball pythons, that they're used to keeping a ball python and they're used to reading that body language. And when they go to get a carpet, it's off a bit, and that's when you get nailed.
they do act like that was one of the big learning curves for me with the carpets was learning the body language, because even with even when they're little, like every little bit of movement they zone in on.
Yeah.
But they're easy to break that food response with, or so I think anyway. But the way that they move, they're very direct with their movements.
Yes. Yeah.
And coming from just working with ball pythons, I kind of act, like I said, the lights are on, but nobody's home half the time.
Right.
Those direct movements, if you were to see that from a ball python, that means you're getting lit up.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, it's a whole different animal to learn and get used to.
Right.
Let's see here. I got a whole list of stuff we can go through.
Man.
But let me see here. Tell us about your trips to Australia, because you've gone to Australia. You've gotten to see these things in the wild. You've gotten to see. Well, what have you gotten to see while you were out there in Australia? Because I'm sure the list is long. But
so I've been there. The first time I went was in 2018, and I believe. I think I'm at the point now in my herp career, I guess, if you will, or herp hobby career, that I'm sort of moving away. I moved away from the big collection, sort of settled in on things that I just really, really like. And I wanted to spend more time in the field, because I think that there's no better way to understand the snake you're trying to keep than if you have the opportunity to go and see it in the wild, right? Obviously, you're only seeing like this little snapshot in time that you're there. But there's something about seeing a python in the wild that is just so foreign in my brain. Like here in the US, we see rat snakes, garter snakes, rattlesnakes, all awesome snakes, but bull snakes, gopher snakes. I can go on and on and on. But when you see a python in that way, you know what I mean? It's like, wait, what? So
it's something that you figure. I mean, we don't have that here unless you live down in Florida.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's it's a foreign sight.
Yeah, and even that is just it's just different, and especially if it's a snake that you really like, So 2018 we went to Cairns, and we saw some scrub pythons, which was oh my God, that was fantastic. Obviously we saw a couple carpet pythons, and we learned a lot on that trip on like how to do a trip like that, because up until that point it's always seemed like impossible to do. This is like an impossible trip. It's going to cost so much money. Everybody talks about how long the flight is and all this different stuff that keep people from doing it. But if you're a reptile lover, there is no better place on the planet than Australia. I mean, it is it's just reptile heaven, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. It's just it's like you're stepping into this like different place and time. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, so we went back in 2018, but this time we went to the Northern Territory. That time we found, so there's this, I don't know if people would know this or not. This is one of those oddball pythons. It's an Oenpelli python, and it used to be in the Morelia genus, and then it was moved out to Somalia with scrub pythons, right? So anyway, there's people in Australia that have been looking for that snake for years, 20, 30 years, looking for this snake and can't find it, because what it does is it's in these rocky escarpments all through Australia, and they hide way back in these rocky escarpments, and they're trying to escape the heat, because it's like it's 100 degrees outside of these rocks, and on the rock you're looking at like 180 degrees temperature.
It's outrageously hot.
It's just crazy hot, so they're I think they're there. There's more of them there, but they're just, you have to be in the right place. So anyway, it's kind of crazy how we found that thing, because I lost my phone on this top of this mountain, and I had to, I couldn't find it, and then somebody found it, and then they called my wife in America, and then she calls me, and they leave it at a hotel, so we have to go back to where we were. And when we went back, we were like, all right, let's just give it another shot at this place that we were at to see if we could find it. And sure enough, we're walking through, and it came out from the rock, and it's just coming across, and you see this python coming across, and it's not, I mean, because they're big snakes, right? They're not fat like a retic or a berm. They're thin, but they're long. They're long. Yeah, they're really long. So anyway, it comes out. We're freaking out. It's like, I can't believe we found it. Everybody told me that we wouldn't find this snake. They're like, you'll never find that snake. And then we found it. So we found children's pythons on that trip. We found water pythons on that trip. We found what else did we found a carpet python that was up in a tree at a park. It's a park, it's a park, and we got to meet and hang out with Gavin Bedford, which was awesome. If people don't know who he is, he's kind of like the python guy in Australia. He's an awesome guy. He breeds Oenpellis, and he kind of like had to go through these hoops and to get them into captivity. Because the Aboriginals look at that snake as like as a spiritual, it's part of their whole spiritual thing. And he was able to do that and get them into captivity and produce them, because they're difficult to do. We saw a blackhead, which was amazing. I mean, a black-headed python, it's just, I don't know, man. And then we just went back to Australia in 2022, and we went to Brisbane, where it's basically the land of the coastal carpet. And I think we found 9 carpet pythons, maybe. But I don't know, man. I just get a sense of peace when I'm there. I guess because I'm a python lover, that's really the land of the pythons right there in all that area. And it's not too far off of America, right? If you're going to go to, like, say, Borneo or Indonesia or places like that, you got the language barrier and all that kind of stuff, But I don't know. There's a lot I learned about pythons just from going into the habitat, where they're at, what they're doing. My whole idea of carpet python being arboreal and like really using the arboreal, using like sticks and stuff that they can perch on and stuff and whatnot, because I used to think of like the chondro pose, where it's sort of like perched on just a single stick hanging like this. But carpet pythons do more like what a tree boa does, where they're sort of like, they'll have one coil here, one coil here, one coil here, one coil here, and they're sort of perched on different spots on the tree. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the reason that my carpets probably weren't perching is because I wasn't giving it the right type of perch, so they definitely need to be able to, well, I shouldn't say they need to do it, but it's definitely something that they prefer, and if you can't get the perches, another trick that people do is they'll take those hide boxes and they'll put it at the top of the cage, and you can put like these, I forget what they're like, little,
you basically like make
rods,
like
you can slide it on. Yeah, it's like tracking and slide them on there. your carpet python will never come out of that. Don't stay there forever. But yeah, man, Australia is amazing. We were going to go again this year, but the price of tickets is just insane because inflation and all that kind of stuff. So
the price of fuel, I bet you, is just outrageous for a freaking jet.
Yeah, it's just an amazing place, man. I if I could, I would move there and never look back.
So what did it cost roughly when you did go?
I don't know, maybe $1,500 to $2,000 total, all total.
Oh hell, dude! I thought it'd be more than that.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy, man. People, I thought it easy $10,000 the first time I was thinking. I thought, this is $10,000, which is why I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. But no, not that much at all.
Now, did you have any guides go out with you when you were out there looking for stuff, or did you and the group just kind of go out and kind of wing it?
So yes and no, right? My other good friend, it's probably my other best friend in herpetoculture, his name's Rob Stone, and this guy is like, I have never talked to him about reptiles and him not at least know the species that I'm talking. Like, he knows everything, but I think it's everything. Obviously, he doesn't know everything, but to me, it's like whatever I throw at him, whether it's, if it's snakes, lizards, frogs, just anything. He's just, hey man, did you ever know this guy back in 1992 and blah blah? Oh yeah, he did this and that, and he's the one that bred that, and and he knows just amazing. Anyway, his whole thing is he likes to plan the trip, so he goes to he really dives in, and I don't think that our trips would be what they are if Rob wasn't there with us. Like, he really does the research to find where we can go and where we stand the best shot to find stuff. So that's you definitely have to put some work into it, but I think that the idea, right, is you walk off the plane and there's just reptiles running everywhere in Australia. It's not the case. You do have to do a little bit of legwork.
Yeah, do a little bit of work.
But now, carpet pythons are, especially in Southeast Queensland, they are everywhere. They are everywhere. Yes.
You don't have to work too hard for them.
No.
Now, did you see any? Because I know Riley has these really awesome, they're little speckled gecko that they're Australians. Did you see any of those? Because I think those things are just beautiful.
Yeah, we saw. We saw them. I think the common name is golden-tailed gecko. Shafurus is the type of gecko. Yeah, and there's so many species of those as well. But actually, it's a funny story. We're driving down this road, and it's well known for having olive pythons on the road. And we're driving down, and everybody's finding snakes and stuff. And I didn't have a snake on the board yet, so I see this stick, and it kind of looks like a blackhead. It has that blackhead pattern. So I yell out, "Blackhead!" So we all jump out of the car and we walk over, and it turns out that it's a stick. And Owen, in true form, he decides that he's gonna give it to me, busting my stones really bad. And it turns out that that's where we found one. I was walking around, and I had to sort of make up for the fact that if we found a stick, and there was one of the geckos just chilling right on the, driving down the side of the road. Those little, I guess it was a little, a little bush or whatever, and it's just hanging out right there,
chilling in it.
Yeah.
Well, see, you really at least redeemed yourself a little bit on it.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
To see that's something, when I'm out driving around, I'm always looking at sticks and stuff. Yeah. And just move a little bit.
Yeah.
Just move a little bit, so that way I know if I need to avoid you or not.
Yeah.
Now, because I had told you I was going to bring this up as well. I had a person comment on one of my videos. Actually, they just commented today.
Okay.
they are from Australia. So I thought that was really freaking cool and perfect timing as well.
Right.
But they had made a comment on how I guess Australians think that we think that jungle carpets are found in jungles. And they say that Australia really doesn't have jungles. So like I guess it's kind of like a funny haha for towards Americans that they, think that I guess they're thinking that we're thinking of like the rainforest jungle type of deal.
Yeah. So, all right. Let me think about it. So the old thinking used to be, right, that what a jungle carpet would be is like Australia has sort of like been drying out for like a real long time, right? So they're just going through this phase of like the rainforests are sort of shrinking, and the rainforests are basically up on the east coast towards the top as you're going towards Cape York, right?
Okay.
And that's where you find like the green trees, pythons, and like and it's a rainforest. Scrub pythons are up there, that kind of stuff. But what they would think is that the jungle carpet python would sort of hang out in these rainforests, and outside of that would be where the coastal carpets would be. And as those jungle areas, as those rainforests would shrink, you would see more phenotypes like the coastal carpet as opposed to the jungle carpet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I don't know why they think. I think probably what they're trying to say is exactly what I was saying earlier about our idea of what a coastal carpet is and what a jungle carpet is total bullshit for what's in the wild, because animals that we would call a coastal carpet, they call jungle carpet. And anything that's in the south, like down by Brisbane, like the southern range of those would be the coastal carpet. And they get big, you're looking at like 8-10 feet. And that's where that whole idea of coastal carpets getting huge comes from, right? Because those snakes down there are bigger, whereas the ones up north
one's more up north
are smaller, 5-6 feet, 7 feet, maybe tops, type of deal. So as far as what's in the US, I would say that what you typically would see as a coastal carpet is probably what they would consider a jungle carpet, or they consider it a coastal carpet and don't consider jungle. Like it's all the same to them. You know what I mean? Like that whole area, it's just all the same, except for those ones that are down south. And then the further south you go, they interbreed with diamond pythons, and you got this area where you have diamond pythons and coastal carpets. That's sort of like you have this weird. I think in Australia in the hobby they call them rainforest diamonds, but they're diamond python pattern, but they got coastal carpet colors where they're like brown and yellow, and they're really kind of cool. I have one that's a diamond coastal cross, and it's really, really a cool looking snake, but it's not like it was taken from Australia and it was that, but you can still see what the results you would get. And then as you get further south, it's cold, and now you got diamond pythons where they're at. But it's basically carpet pythons going all up and down that east coast, and then you got the Great Dividing Range that goes up, and then you have carpet pythons on the other side of it. You have the inlands and stuff that are out there, and then they sort of they're sort of mixing with coastals at some spots that it's thought, and then you got the Brettles in the middle, and then you got the southwest carpets on the west coast, which they're a separate species. They're a whole species. And then you got the Darwins that are up on the top, like in the Northern Territory type of thing. That's how carpet pythons in a nutshell kind of break down in Australia.
See, I didn't know exactly how they broke down on that. So I'm glad you actually did that, because that was one thing that kind of always, I always wondered, and I guess I should have done more research on it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I told you I was a snake nerd.
hey. I appreciate it, dude, because I do a lot better retaining stuff if I'm hearing it, and if I can go back and rewatch it.
Sure.
If I have to go read some, because I've heard several people tell me, "Oh, you need to read the Nick Mutton's the complete carpet python or the more complete."
Yeah.
And I'm just here to say I would love to, as it would never get finished because reading is just not my thing.
Sure.
If it like maybe it comes on audio and maybe that'd be the better way to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like if I read something, you could ask me 5 minutes later, what did I just read? And I'd look at you with just a blank face of
yeah. And that's sort of
out the other, basically.
To your point, that's sort of like what MPR is about, right? You know, the whole idea is that we're talking about those type of things with breeders and people that have seen them in the wild, and researchers and people that written books and stuff. And we get them on to talk about them. And we don't always just talk about carpet pythons. The one thing we don't do is like, we don't have just as like a ball python specific guest on. And I'll tell you why. Because there's too many people that do that, and I'm not in that world enough to do that justice, right? So why am I going to try to dip my toe into this? What I prefer is someone like you who keeps both, right? So yeah. I can sort of like talk to you about the other pythons, and then we can relate of how the two relate together, right? Or how you see the hobby with them together, or like what's your experiences coming from this side of the hobby to that side of the hobby, like that kind of thing. That's sort of where we come from, of how we fit into the whole Python podcast world, I suppose.
Which that's actually really good. I mean, that's actually explained very well here. James says, MPR is awesome. I'm new to it, so good info.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
There is tons of information on that. And it's actually funny that you brought up like the whole give and take from, both aspects of it, because when you were last on, we were talking about the oops all normals thing.
Yeah.
And we were relating, that to the Morelia world. And I think from how that went, and everybody, if nobody's seen that, go back after this video or after the stream, everybody, and put it on there, because there's a lot of good perspectives that came out during that live. But I think it also helped, because I think Riley was even like, well, I never thought of it or looked at it from that perspective before.
Mm-hmm.
And, it got some gears turning in everybody's head.
I think that's where a lot of I remember in the early days where, what's up, William? He's awesome. I love William. He's a Python guy like me, man. He likes them all, I think in the early days, if I'm being honest, there was probably a little bit of jealousy. There was probably a little bit of, it's just like, oh, you're the cool ones, or you get to sell, like you'd hear the ball python breeders at shows and stuff. And it's like, yo, man, I just made 30 grand. And you're like, oh, I just sold maybe $500 worth of carpet pythons, And I think that, over the years, I think people have grown. NPR is okay. Look at Owen. Yeah. What am I going to do with him? But I think over the years, we've sort of moved away from that. I think it's just I think I said on that show, I think the difference between the two hobbies is how you come about it. Like I see the ball python people as, they're trying to do, I think they're into the business side of things, right? I think that they're into I'm going to call it the Dr. Frankenstein type of thing. Like, what am I going to get out of this?
I could definitely see that, because there's a lot of combos. You're just guessing.
Yeah.
I think this might do that. Let's see what it actually does do.
Yeah, 100%.
We're all looking in that aspect. We're all looking for that next big combo that's
sure
wow people. And everybody's going to want to, it puts you on the map, basically.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? That's awesome. And let's be honest, I don't think the hobby would be where the hobby is if ball pythons weren't what they are. I mean, it just wouldn't. I mean, that's just the reality of it,
My only gripe, and everybody don't hate me for saying this, when you go to a show, all right,
mm-hmm.
I can buzz through a show real quick,
mm-hmm.
because I'm either looking for the carpets or one or two different things in ball pythons.
Right.
But that's basically 3/4. Probably even more than 3/4. Probably 90% of every show is just ball pythons.
Right.
So, and so many people, it seems like, are chasing
The same
you
thing.
know, they're all chasing the same thing. So there's not much variation in everything.
Right.
Where, when you're cruising through that, the one thing that'll stop me dead in my tracks is, oh my God, I came across somebody that's got carpet pythons. Like there's
Yeah.
different species that you've come across. Is like it'll stop you dead in your tracks. You're like, wow, I don't see this. Like, or very rarely do you see it.
Right. And I think, I think like, for me, ball pythons are one of those snakes that when I was a kid, you didn't see ball pythons, so again, I'm going back to the 80s, right? So there was a local pet shop around the corner from my house. I would go there. The guy had a ball python in the tank, and he wasn't selling it. It's just a snake that he had. And at the time, that was the rare python, right? You know what I mean? Which is crazy. It's just that was the rare snake. So to me, I think why I get, like, sometimes I don't get this way anymore because I don't really care as much about these things, like I have too much going on in my life that I don't have time to care about it. But I think I was glad that I was able to come on that show with you, like, Oops, All Normals. I think that, to me, that, like, that's such a special snake. And the fact that if it's not decked out in a crazy pattern or a crazy color, or it's a combo that hasn't seen, that it's just worthless. And that sort of bothers me. And that would bother me if it was carpet pythons too. You know what I mean? And I just like, I get it. I understand it, right? It's not like I don't understand it. I understand it, right? If you have three recessive genes that you're breeding to another 3 recessive gene snake, and you're trying to pop out this, this snake with the 3 genes in it.
Yeah,
that's quite a hard thing to hit, let's say, and then, when you just get the clutch and it's all normals, I understand what it means when you say, oh shit, I only got normals, right? But it's the mindset, I think, that sometimes portrays into the newer people, that they think like, well, normals are just bullshit, right? And that keeper or that breeder that's saying that might not even feel that way, but they're just saying it, and they're sort of the listener sort of taking that out of context, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's like and everybody, I don't mean to dive into it if you've already all have seen that live, but it was really good. So go back and check it out if you haven't.
Yeah.
But when Riley posted that up, it really, like, it hit me real hard, and it hit me hard just because of, I got to think, it's like, well, what other species out there, when you get the quote unquote normal, are you like, oh shit, or like you disappointed, or you're like, oh, now I basically have to give these things away? Like, it just really bothered me, because it put me in a different, like, it made me sit back and think. It's like, why have we devalued the base of everything in our industry? Why did we devalue it so much to where we think it is worthless or a terrible thing? Because I've got some normals sitting in the rack. Granted, they're, hets or double hets that I've produced. So, there's more there than just a quote unquote normal.
Right.
But God, just as, if you just look at them as
a normal ball python,
they're freaking beautiful looking.
Yeah, I guess that's what I mean. A normal ball python is like, well, again, it's hard to compare when you're looking at, some of the stuff that, say, Kabilka's putting out, and say that a normal ball python is beautiful. And this is, I get it. It. I understand that. But at the same time, I think, and even carpet, I found myself with carpets. And this is sort of like what's sort of like turned my brain around a bit when it comes to like the morph breeding type of thing, is like, I got addicted to the I call it the hunt. Right. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go get this, and I'm going to go get this. And when I get this and I get this, I'm going to feel complete. But as soon as I get it, I don't feel complete. And now I have to get another thing, and then another thing. And it's like, you're constantly chasing this thing. And it for me, it wasn't really about the snakes anymore. It was about this chase, and it was like, oh, I got to have this bloodline and this bloodline and this bloodline and this morph and this thing and this species and this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And it just, my whole collection becomes like, there's no sense of focus to it. There's just like, it's just like I'm trying to get everything, and especially with ball pythons, right? You're never going to have everything. That's just impossible.
No, so if you got to think like,
yeah, if you're going down that road, you're lost, man.
yeah. I originally figured it's like I started off with 3 main recessives: Exantic, Clown, and Desert Ghost.
Right.
And now, without really, I didn't plan on it, but I ended up just because I really liked the way certain combos of a recessive looked. I got into the hypo and I got into pied now. So I got added, originally planned on 3 recessives just because it was going to allow me to build that nice strong foundation.
Right.
And then I added the other 2 on just because it's like, you know what, it'll be neat just to make some of those varieties of the ones that I just really like out of that combo.
Right.
But man, it's like you said, like you can't, God, if you try to have it all, you're gonna go freaking nuts.
Yeah, and to what William was saying, and the thing, like, here's a python that has this behavior that when it's threatened, it balls itself into a ball. Like, it's like, that's kind of like, we're not. You become numb to it, right? You become numb to it because it's sort of like, okay. It's kind of like the first time you saw your snake shed, or the first time you fed it, or you know what I mean? Like those things that you remember, like, oh my God, this is so cool. This snake is eating this thing and it has no arms, no legs. It's just using its face to sort of walk across this thing. Their jaws split wide open and they like suck it in and walk it across. And you're like, whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like we take it for granted, like how cool these snakes actually are, and like to me, the interesting thing about them is that thing. That's like, there's no other species of python that I can think of off the top of my head that rolls itself into a ball to protect. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's
they're kind of like I'm gonna go out and say this. I don't care. I'm sorry if it offends anybody. It's kind of like the French. They just kind of wave the white flag right away. Like, I surrender. We're done.
yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like, I think that's what doesn't, let's say this is why I'm not attracted to want to get into the morph game of ball pythons, right? Because to me, it's like, you're just chasing something that seems to, you never get to the finish line. And then you have this collection of 400 animals that you're struggling to take care of. You're on the edge of burnout because you've just chased everything and then you just crash and burn. And like, rather than, like sort of like what you're saying, right? Pick a gene, work on that gene and refine that gene as best you can, and I don't know, maybe you can tell me, is it like, do people refine like if you have Exantic, are you trying to make just nicer Exantics?
That's why basically, like, I'm sure you're probably familiar with John Daig, which is like basically the Exantic king of the ball python world.
Yes.
That's kind of like the quality I want to strive to produce, is the most black and white, ball python there is.
Right.
And I've got a killer pastel line here that I just now got into my Exantic lot stuff.
Right.
And so now I'm going to start refining that, holding back, the best of those, just trying to get those pure blacks and whites and, just make beautiful stuff, which is also why I started talking to you about like the gelatin stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because gelatins, like, I feel like pictures don't do them enough justice.
No.
Everybody says that they're like the natural Exantics and jungles.
Yes.
But when I see pictures of them, it's like, man, I just don't see like and maybe there's just different color variations too with them.
Yeah, there is. Right. So in my opinion, the carpet pythons are probably, I would say carpet python.
You gotta love my. I just love my friends.
The
I love my
Jolliffe?
friends.
You got the Jolliffe line of Exantic? Isn't that a thing?
Jolliffe, I think Jolliffe. I forget what. I know Jolliffe is a line. Yeah, I work with TSK.
Oh, okay.
Nathan, I swear, I love my friends. I love you, brother.
Yeah, I think that's like, to me. So to me, I look at the python hobby as like, you got the ball pythons, you got the big snakes, you got the short tails, and you got everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm into everything else type of work, even though I love all of them. Like, to me, that's where everything else is. And then that everything else is, you got species that are hard to breed, haven't been bred. You have species that are hard to keep, or very rare, and even that rarity, right? That whole idea of rarity in something is also, to me, I look at it no different than the morph game, right? Because if you look at something like a Halmahera scrub python, it's a brown snake. It's a beautiful snake, but like, it's a brown snake, right? So
Yeah.
are people into that because they want to be the one that breeds it? Or are they into that because they really like the way that the snake looks, right? And I find that most of the people are in it because they want to be the guy, right? I want to be that one that did this, and I want to be, and this is going to rocket me to the head of the reptile community, and everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, blah blah blah. Eric Burke is such an awesome guy because he bred this species that nobody gives a shit about anymore." You know what I mean? Like, so. I don't know. I think even I think it's a bit hypocritical, right, for us to be calling each other out for that kind of thing. We're just looking at it from, to me, where I've sort of landed in it is that all of those groups are just looking at the same thing from a different perspective, right? They're just looking at it from a different way. This is what they get joy out of in the hobby. All right, man, go to it, do your thing. And I'll do my thing over here. But I think too often, like, I see it, and even I felt sort of victim to it in the early days. Is like, I remember, it was like, this is when bumblebees were like the brand new thing, right? So you think about how long this is. I was like, man, I'm gonna get a spider male. I'm gonna get a whole bunch of super pastel females, and I'm gonna get a lesser pastel, and I'm just gonna crush it, And it.
Dude, I still love bumblebees. I absolutely freaking love them. So
let me ask you this: do you think that people really give a shit about bumblebees anymore, except for a few people? Like, in the mainstream ball python world, do people give a shit about it anymore?
Dude, right now, anything with spider has been run so hard into the ground
because of the wobble.
Because of the wobble and the inner ear thing, and everybody calling it neurological, even though it's supposedly an inner ear issue. It's kind of like the jag thing, but man, people just ran the spider into the ground, like, on that one. So now, if you could have an outrageous combo, and if it's got spider in it, you just basically cut what the snake's worth probably almost in half because of it having spider in it, which is stupid. Because like, I've got I don't have a lot of it, but I've got a decent amount of it, and none of mine have issues at all.
Right.
Like, I can pull any one of my spiders out, and it'll act just like a normal snake. I can, they'll reach out. They don't do the corkscrew and crap. They're fine. But just because of the name that gene got, people don't really want them as much.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. The jag gene is the same thing in carpets, right? It's the same exact thing, right? Produces a leucistic snake if you breed the two together, and it dies out of the egg. I know that there's people in the ball python world that would disagree with that, and they say that it's not, like, there is a super spider. I'm sorry, I'm going to call bullshit on that. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, you can say all you want. I'm calling bullshit on it, and that's fine, but it just seems odd to me that you have the same snake that reduces the pattern, reduces the melanin, increases the brightness of the snake, and has a neurological issue. and it does the same exact thing with the wobble and the head. It produces the same exact thing, and you can't tell me that it's not the same exact thing, right? If you look at short-tailed pythons, you have the zebra carpet, and you have this thing called a batik. It's the same type of crazy whacked out pattern type of thing. And guess what? If you breed a batik to a batik, you get a patternless super that has a fucked up tail. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you allowed to curse on here? I'm sorry.
Hey, we're beyond. I think you can't curse for like, I don't know, a minute or something like that into the episode. So we're like an hour and 20, so we're good.
Okay. So it has a messed up tail. And that's the same thing that happens with zebra carpets. You get a patternless snake with a messed up tail. So like this idea, and even I think retics have something called a jag that have that noro thing, and it does the same thing, reduces
there is
the pattern.
I think with retics that's they've got. Yeah. I think I think almost every mainstream species has,
and think
that
about
one
that
gene that does it.
Think about that for a second, right? You have albino everything. Albino turtles, albino horses, albino zebras, albino deer, albino snakes, albino people. Like, is it different? Is it a different gene? It works differently? No, it's the same thing. It's just in a different species. That's all it is, Exactly. So, me personally, with the jag thing and carpet pythons, got to the point where I was breeding morphs, and it got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore, right? It was just, when you start combining stuff, you would have snakes like they're upside down in their tub, and I'm just like, is this right? For me. And again, it has nothing to do with anybody else. Everybody else can do what they want, and I'm not here to bash anything. But for me, this isn't. I'm not getting any joy out of this. It's actually upsetting me. So I moved out of jags. But Owen, again, who's like my closest friend, he breeds jags, so it's not like we can't live in the same world. It's fine. He does his thing and I do my thing, right? It is what it is. So
well, from how I've heard you describe it too, it sounded like you had a really, really messed up jag.
Yes.
Like did the person that you had it sent to like call you and be like, just so you know.
So yeah, I got an albino jag. It was imported from the UK. I would call him the godfather of carpet pythons, Paul Harris over in UK Pythons. He's kind of like the guy when it comes to carpet pythons. And he sent me a jag, an albino jag, and he's like, hey, listen, Eric, I know you understand carpet pythons and how these work. I'm gonna tell you, this snake is messed up. It breeds, it eats, it sheds, no issues, any of that. But this snake is messed up. So Nick Mutton would get the snakes in, and then he would ship them out in the US. So, and then Nick calls me up and he's like, Eric, this snake is messed up. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking like, good Lord, what am I getting into? So
I was gonna say, you probably had alarms going off because Nick sees how many snakes come through carpet walk.
Yeah, but I've seen messed up jags too, but not to the level of this. And I thought, okay, this is one of his proven breeders, obviously. And I watched it. It bred. I bred it. It bred, and it ate, it shed. Everything was fine. There was you would not, other than that how wacky it was to where its head's upside down. That was enough. I could, once the babies came out like that, and I was just like, nah, I can't do this no more. So I moved on from jags. So
that would, and if I would have had a bad experience with like the spiders and stuff, I probably would feel the same way too.
Yeah.
So I'd be right there with you. That in itself, like even hearing that story from you, because I'm still planning on getting. I don't know if I'm going to try. I'm waiting to see what Mike produces because he just had a clutch drop from Delilah.
Yes.
And I confirmed it with him. I was like, because I, wanted to get a female from him. I was like, hey, is that the clutch that I want to get a female from? He goes, yes. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to, because I think Delilah has jag in her, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think she's a jungle jag.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
And so
wait, is Scattershot's the jag? Delilah's the jungle, I think.
Okay. So I get so mixed up with the names.
Yeah.
All I know is they're freaking beautiful. That's all I can.
Amazing.
That's all I can remember.
Amazing. Amazing, man. Amazing.
But it's like hearing that story with the Jag. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it makes me slightly nervous about getting into the Jag stuff. But at the same token, that's also where like I feel if you see how the animal is before you purchase it, you kind of get a feel for what you're gonna be in for, later on.
I think if you're working with spiders and you don't really see an issue with it, I think you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that obviously there's going to be extremes to all of it, and I've had Jags where they showed no issues at all for years. And then something stressed them out. Boom. All of a sudden, crazy.
So it's kind of stress induced too sometimes.
Yeah, and you think about it, right? Breeding is probably the most stressful time of the year for the python. They're breeding, and in my experience, it's been when I bred them that it really comes. Like if they didn't add it and you breed them, then it comes out.
Okay. James says he just picked up a jungle from Mike a few months ago. He's awesome too. Young blood crossed with Valentina. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Congrats, James. Congrats.
Yeah, Mike has amazing jungles, and he's really good with the yellow and black. And then Owen did a joint pairing with him with the zebra, and oh my god.
Which I think that's where that zebra he had at the show came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Even I was like, so yeah, Owen has these, I'll go to his place like maybe, I don't know, twice a year or whatever. He's usually coming down here rather than me going up there. I don't know why, but that's sort of how it works. But anyway, I go to his house and I come in and start looking through his stuff and whatever. I was like, wait, what is this, man? Like where did this come from? He's like, well, I bred that a couple of years ago. I'm like, what the hell? How do I not know about this?
Okay, he says it is. Yeah, he says it is from that pairing.
Yeah, amazing.
So where did the glowing yellow thing come from that I didn't know you had before?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, holy shit, dude, look at you. But yeah.
Now,
I go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. You go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that like for me with the carpets, that's sort of why I went into the poplin carpet direction. Because I wanted to refine the poplin carpets like the guys before me had refined the jungle carpets, right? I mean, to the point now where it blows my mind, because years ago you would produce a clutch of jungles and you would have a couple that would be all stars. You'd have some that would be like a B grade, and then you would have normal looking jungles that, some like the jungle people would say that they get muddy or they get dark scales or they mud out when they get older, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, man, the more and more I see today, because they've been so selectively bred, I don't see any bad ones anymore. Like I don't see that. I don't know if it's just because people just post the good ones. That could be, but like, I just don't see like the way you would back in the day. Like somebody say, "Oh, look at my carpet python," and you're like, "Oh my god, that's a cool snake." Yeah, but it's not
even the muddy ones though, because like the female that laid the clutch that I have in the incubator now, she's got really vibrant yellows, but she's got a little bit of muddiness on the dorsal. Now the father, like he's not super deep yellow, but he's a very beautiful yellow, but he's got a crap ton of tipping, but there's no muddiness. So I'm hoping to get the best of both worlds and kind of combine it and just have flat out beautiful babies.
This is another thing, then this is why I say this. It's sort of like I see like a lot of jungles sort of having the same look anymore. Whereas when I was first coming in the carpets, you had tipped out ones. You had like, ones that were like all black with a little bit of yellow, like pinstripe yellow.
I want to get it. I want to start doing that too, because that intrigues me as well.
So I guess the some people may see this as a bad thing. Some people may see this as a good thing. But to me, the thing with breeding carpet pythons is that you want to sort of pick a look. Like, to your point, right? Let's say that you want to get into jungle carpets and you sort of have like these different looks. You have some that are neon yellow. You have some that are sort of golden yellow. You have some that are sort of like, like if you look at Palmerston's or stuff, they're like almost like a gold type of yellow, right?
Yeah.
And then you got to look at the black. You're looking at, is it jet black? Is the black tipped out? Is the black have yellow in the you know what I mean? There's all these different type of looks you can go with. And then the tipping or the striping. Or some people like the banded look, some people like, and you can refine all that within those things. And the thing is like, say the difference between like if you're doing a ball python project to where like, okay, I'm breeding candinos, right? And I'm going to breed candinos and I'm going to make a candino spider, and the guy that's 3 tables down from you, they can breed candino spiders too. And there's like, maybe yours are nicer, maybe theirs are nicer. It's sort of a crapshoot, right? If you're not paying attention to what you're putting that snake with, and you're just breeding to breed these 2 genes together and sort of produce babies, you're going to get some that are nice and some that are not, and some that are going to be better than others. But when you sort of have this thing to where you've selectively bred this look, you're the only one with that look. So if you're looking to be somebody, right, you sort of pick what you want, like, and you can sort of like just stay in that lane and sort of be the person that everybody's going to come to. If you're real particular about picking out your, the animals that you're going to breed, you could really do some crazy stuff. So to me, that's sort of why I'm going in the poplin direction, because that game is wide open. And the difference between, say, a jungle and a poplin is like a poplin carpet has maybe 3, 4, 5 different tones that you can work with. Whereas with a jungle, you got yellow and black.
So you've only got
2 colors. You know what I mean?
With poplins, you get, because I think Riley's got a really insane orange color going on with one of his.
Yes, there's orange. I have ones that are high yellow. I have ones that are high black. I have ones that are striped. I have ones that are banded. I have ones that have flames in the band on the bottom to where the bottom of the band is orange. I have ones that are orange. I have ones that are look almost like hypo. I have ones that, and again, putting these together and seeing what you get and trying to refine that the way that jungles were refined, and then poplin carpets might not be the most popular python in the hobby, but if you want one, and I have this look, you're gonna have to come to me to get that look. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's sort of the difference between like how a carpet python breeder would look at a thing as opposed to a ball python breeder. Not one is right and one is wrong. It's just different.
It's just yeah. But I think the really nice thing is, and you had said it earlier, is that with the poplins, you can still get those in.
Yes.
So you can get fresh blood in. You can, that market's. I don't want it. It's very untapped, just because who knows what could be coming in with that next, that next import.
Yeah, because I think, well, if you're coming from the mainstream reptile world, right, to where you have codominant recessive type genes, to where like I can breed these things together and I can pop something out like in a season. Whereas like with this carpet project, this might be 10, 20 years that you're working on this to refine it. You know what I mean? But like, if you're going to leave a mark in the hobby, like if you're going to years from now, who knows if it's podcast, video cast, we all might be like in this virtual world where we're all sitting together having a beer. Who knows how the world is going to be then. They're going to be talking about you because you produced this, you know what I mean? Or you're known for this, just like we talk about guys like Mike Curtin now. Like Owen's a perfect example with caramels. Like, and this is where I screwed up. And I think that my advice to people would be like sort of what we said earlier, sort of like pick a project and sort of stay in that lane, and don't pick, like, I guess the example in ball pythons would be like clown, right? Because Jacob Bilka does, everything, these crazy combos with clown, and then clown becomes the crazy one. I remember, was it years ago when that magma thing didn't have red stripe and nobody gave a shit about red stripe, and then all of a sudden everybody's trying to get red stripe and the price shoots up and all that kind of stuff.
And
Right. So he's not following anybody. He's not waiting to see what somebody else does for him to sort of like, he has a vision. He has a thought that like, I wonder what would happen if I put these two snakes together. And I know how this gene works. I wonder if that gene would play with this gene and make it like this. And I'm sure he strikes out at times. I mean, he can't always hit a home run, right? Maybe it seems like he does, but that could just be the social media type of, world we live in, where you only see the good, and never the bad.
I think the one pumpkin exotic, we'll get to that question in a minute. I think when Justin was going for, what was it, the Suma pied, so that's super mahogany pied. I forget how many clutches he went through. I think I heard it was like 50 some clutches trying to hit that one combo,
right,
until he hit it.
Right.
So I'm like, there's a lot of misses that you don't hear about. Everybody sees the victories.
Right.
But no, you don't hear the whole story about all the misses and all the headaches and all that stuff. But Pumpkin Exotics asks, how long are carpet pythons pregnant for? So I'll let you take that one, Eric. But
so are you talking about like, okay, they're gravid, how long till they lay eggs, or how long do the eggs incubate? So eggs are what, 3 months, I guess, basically.
It's like 50, 55 days, I would say, in the incubator.
Yeah. And you're probably looking at what there's from pre-lay shed to when they drop eggs, it's probably like 20 to 30 days.
Yeah. I think my girl went right on 30.
30, right?
I set my alarm for 20. I set my a reminder on my phone at 25 days, and it was driving me nuts because I was so nervous with this clutch.
Yeah.
But she went like right on like 30 days.
Did you catch her ovulating? Did you see her ovulate?
I missed the ovulation. Like there was one time I saw her where she was stretched out, and this was also something I wanted to talk to you about too. Was just with the difference on how they act. But I saw her one day; she was really stretched out, but she didn't look any chunkier than what she had been throughout the whole process.
Right.
But that's the only thing I could think of, because then, like, probably about 20 days after that is when I got the prelay. So I'm guessing that was the ovulation, but it's not like ball pythons, they really swell up. Like, really swell up. And then you get like a tail suck, and it seemed like the carpets, like I didn't see any tail suck for sure, because I checked that. But.
So carpet python breeding in a nutshell is like, I follow the holidays, right? So and it's changed a little bit now because of like how our weather's been here in Pennsylvania, to where it stays warmer longer, if you will. So I've adjusted.
Winters aren't as terrible anymore.
Right. Yeah. So basically, Halloween is when I stop feeding.
Okay.
And from Halloween to Thanksgiving, I let them empty out. So they empty out everything, if they had a meal in it or whatever. Now, prior to Halloween, I'm hammering them with food. I'm giving them smaller meals and feeding them more often, right? Because I sort of cycle feed my snakes. So here you are, Thanksgiving. From Thanksgiving to Christmas is when it starts to cool down, right? So
you start dropping temps.
Start dropping temps gradually. Normal temps during the day. So you're looking at, as far as temperatures goes for carpet pythons, 80 ambient. It maybe 85 for a hot spot. Now that's saying that you have like a 4x2 type of enclosure, right? You have a hot spot where it can get to like 85, and then you got a cooler side where it's like 80 to 78 degrees, let's say, right? At night, I cut off the heat 100%. I don't have any heat going on anytime, all the time. Carpets are freaking resilient as it's just crazy how resilient they are. As long as they can warm up during the day, they could probably go down into the 40s without an issue.
Wow.
So
Okay.
diamond pythons, you have to get them down into the 50s and 40s in order to breed them.
Well, I
Bredl's
heard
python,
diamonds like it cooler in general.
yes,
And
yeah, they're a
I
little bit
remember
different.
Riley saying something about what was he? Was it his Bredls? That he put
Bredl's
like a
are the
little
same.
mini air conditioner unit
Yes,
in with them to drop them even farther?
yeah, Bredl's are kind of the same. So I should back that up. So you have the carpet python complex breaks down into what we call winter breeders and spring breeders, right? So the winter
Okay.
breeders would be the jungles, the coastals, the IJs. Inlands are sort of on the fence, but in the wild, they breed during the spring. Diamond pythons breed during the spring. Um, Morelia imbricata, which is the southwestern carpet python on the west coast, they breed during the spring. All the other ones, the Darwins, the IJs, the ones in the Cape York, the ones up in far north Queensland, the ones that are coming down to Brisbane, they're all breeding during the wintertime.
Okay.
So that's sort of where that for the majority of what we have in the States, that's probably where you're at. So diamond pythons are a completely different thing. They're completely different in how you breed them and keep them and everything like that. Because to your point, you got to keep them cooler ambience and stuff like that. So it's Christmas time. I start pairing them up. I used to shoot for 70 degrees lowest point, but
Okay.
when I was in Australia and I found carpet pythons, it was 70 degrees out. So, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking they're cooling down, but this is like their normal temperature
That's
that
just
they're out and about in. So again, blew my mind and thinking like, because when I go herping, I'm taking all this data. I'm taking UV, I'm taking temperatures, I'm taking body temperatures, I'm taking the temperature of the ground, I'm taking the ambient temperature, I'm taking the humidity, all this, anything I can possibly put down as far as data, I'm putting down. So from basically at this point, from Christmas until Valentine's Day, I'm keeping those snakes together, right? I don't separate them. I don't pull them out. I don't do anything. Two snakes go together. One of the telltale signs that you're sort of in the breeding season for carpet pythons is that males will cruise their tub 100% all the time. I've always seen it. They smell the females in the room. That you'll see this. They're like trying to get out of their cage, going up. Like I'm sure you've seen it, right?
That guy right there, dude.
100%, right?
He literally, guys in my group chat make fun of me all the time because I guess I should have phrased it differently. But I could tell that female, that she was putting out the pheromones because that male literally had the cocoa pushed all the way from the front of the enclosure. And he was just strolling back and forth like a freaking wild dog, basically.
He smells that girl. He wants to breed. That's the thing. So that's sort of like, looking for those signs is sort of like, how you sort of know when to sort of adjust it. But just to give you an idea of like how the temperatures go, this is sort of where I'm at. So February at this point, you're looking at Valentine's Day. I'm sort of saying at this point, like, you're going to start to see females ovulate. In my experience, pop ones go first. Jungles go next, coastals go next. It's not a written in stone that's how it goes, but like I think because pop ones are further up, they have less temperature swings, right? They're sort of like in that, where everything's sort of staying at 80 degrees all the time type of deal where you don't really have to. It's kind of probably like ball pythons, right? You don't really manipulate the temperatures and stuff. I know people
I
don't,
don't
right?
change my temps at all with them.
Right, exactly. So they're not stimulated by that as like, say more snakes that are in more up and down type of weather swings to where they need that in order to get them going. So at that point, as soon as I see that female ovulate, one of the signs for a female that's gravid is she'll start to bask belly up. Now my snakes have never done that. Owen snakes have done that. So I think it's just a matter of the snake. Maybe it's a matter of how you have it set up. We've thought about like, is it because the female is trying to, like, if you're using above heat, is she laying like this because she's trying to get that blood that's going through her to warm the follicle growth inside of her? And if you have belly heat, is she trying to flip over so that she's getting that on her back? Who knows? I don't know. It's one of those questions that maybe one day we'll figure out. But like that would be a sign to say, okay, something's going on with this girl, And I don't know how to explain it, but me and Owen go through this every year. He can see it in my snakes that I sort of question, and I can see it in his snakes. So when I go and see his snakes, he'll be like, I don't know if this girl is gravid. And I'll look at her and I'll say, dude, what are you talking about? She's freaking loaded with eggs. So they sort of get like, if you look at the scales on the bottom of the carpet, it sort of looks like, I don't know how to explain it other than it's like they become sort of blocked, right? So it's like the belly, whereas normally
they're narrow and rectangular. Yeah.
Now it sort of goes like where the belly scales stay narrow, but the belly sort of swells out over top of those scales. So if you're looking at the belly, you can sort of see like how that is. I know that's probably a terrible way of explaining it. It's something you sort of have to have an eye for, but that would be one of the things. So at that point, I'm just giving her heat, making sure she has water. There has been times where, like, if a female isn't ovulating or I'm questioning it, sometimes I'll give her a small meal. Boom, induces ovulation right away.
Okay.
So that's a little tip that you can have. I don't know if that works with ball pythons because I've never bred them, so I'm not sure.
Dude, ball pythons, like for mine anyway, once they hit, God, probably follicle size of something about the size of like a nickel for me. They're awful. Like they just stop eating in general.
Right.
Now the funny thing is with my jungle girl that laid, I didn't know. I had no plans on breeding her until that one there went from being a female to a male.
Right.
And then I went on this spree of, it's like, okay, well, that one down there is supposed to be a female. I tried popping her and say, all right, I'm not getting sperm plugs. I'm not getting hemipenes or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Threw the ultrasound on her. And mind you, she was eating one, like a small rat every 2 weeks is what I have them on.
Okay.
She was eating just normal.
Right.
And I threw the ultrasound on her and she was at 17 mil follicles.
Okay.
I'm like, wait, what? it's like you're not supposed to be like wanting to breed till next year.
Right.
So it's like, all right, it's like we're gonna salvage this carpet season or at least try to.
Yeah. And then she'll go probably, I would say maybe some March, April, maybe February. Depends on where you are on this thing. But let's just say we're sticking with the holidays. I would say probably around St. Patty's Day. You're going to start to see her go into a shed. That would be the pre-lay shed. 20 days from that, Easter, somewhere in that area, 20, 30 days, she's going to drop eggs. In my experience, and I've watched this with other people too, days before the carpet is about to lay the clutch, she twists herself into the most uncomfortable looking positions. She's like tying herself in pretzel knots, and like you'll see them twisted all kind of. You're like you'll look at the snake and be like, "What the hell is wrong with this snake?" You know what I mean? Eggs usually pop out. Usually days from that. As soon as I'm paying attention to that, looking at that from the pre-lay shed. As soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, she's gonna lay any day. Yeah. At that point, you sort of make the decision. We talked about this earlier, whether or not you're going to go maternal incubation or you're going to pull the eggs and incubate them in the thing. I would say clutch size. I think that's is what Pumpkin is asking. Clutch size, depending on the subspecies, can make a difference. But I'd say typical carpet python clutch is probably going to be 12 to 15 eggs. Brettles are going to be more because they're bigger. You're probably looking at 20. I know Owen, I think, had a clutch one time that was 30. That's a big clutch. That's a big clutch.
That's a lot. Like I had joked around with some people because, I've heard that, between, your 10 to 30 eggs in that spectrum is what you can expect from a carpet. And I sat there and I looked at my hatchling rack. I thought, that's like half my freaking hatchling rack for one freaking snake.
Yeah. I would say the average is probably 12 to 15. That would to me, that would be the average. If you're looking at all the different subspecies and all the different localities and all that, I would say 12 to 15 is probably in the ballpark. So when it comes to maternal incubation, it's a little bit different than say ball pythons or some other pythons. It's like carpet pythons actually will wrap around the eggs, and they do this. They shake, right? So they sort of twitch, and it raises the heat within their coils to sort of put those. How big were the eggs in the 30 clutch? I think they're regular size. So carpets hatch out like 22 grams, 22 grams, somewhere in that area. That's kind of where 20, 25. 25 is a big one.
A little bit smaller than a ball python egg, James.
Yeah. I would say they're like maybe kind of like the size of a chicken egg, maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's probably somewhere in that area. They're just shaped a little bit different. But
if you would elongate like an extra large chicken egg, that's probably about the right size. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if she's going to do maternal incubation, you really have to make sure that, you know, you put the food to her and she's able to do it, because when she comes out of that, she's going to be in bad, like I say bad shape, but your snake is going to look bad, right? That they do this in the wild. This is what they look like. But for us to keep them in captivity, it's going to be hard for our brains to process that this is not, we're going to think that this is not normal and I broke my snake, right? It's kind of that mindset.
I was kind of surprised because I heard the same, like what you just said, you expect them to look really bad.
Yeah.
My female, and maybe it's just because she ate, you know, basically up until like 17 mils, basically.
Yeah.
She actually didn't look as bad as I expected. Like, I actually even gave her a compliment, not that she gave a damn.
Yeah.
But right. I was like, girl, you don't look as bad as I thought you would.
Well, I'm saying after maternal, are you artificially incubating
after
eggs?
the maternal incubation.
I'm talking about after,
okay.
Because now she went all through the the being gravid, laying the eggs, all that stuff. Now you got another 55 days on top of it that she has to keep the eggs, you know? So you're looking at another couple months that she's going to be protecting those eggs. But some interesting things that happen during that ball pythons don't do. And I think this is why the carpet python world sort of is like fascinated by maternal incubation, is that, you know, the female, I've had the female where, okay, so here's an example. I put the first clutch that I bred was IJs, Poplin carpets. That's the other name. Sometimes you'll hear them called in between. I do that all the time. I jump back and forth in between. They used to be called IJs, Irian Jaya carpets. Now it's the more name is Poplin carpets. So anyway, I would put the egg box in that she was going to lay in the cage, and I pushed it towards the heat, and she'd push it away. I'd push it back. She'd push it away. I'd push it back. She'd push it away. I push it back. She pushed it away. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I said, you know what? I'm just going to let it go as it is. Maybe she's doing something that I don't understand and I can't get it. Right. So then she goes in the box and she lays in the box because now it's where she wants it to be. Right. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. Like that just kind of blew my mind that she's able to tell that this spot in the cage is somehow the perfect temperature that she's going to do.
Yeah.
I've also seen them to where they beehive around the eggs, and then they sort of they'll take the coils to where they sort of pick the eggs up, and they can move them. They can move where they're at by the heat, right? So that is pretty cool. I've seen females come out of they'll leave some females will leave the eggs. They'll go and bask, and then they'll go back to the eggs. I've seen females where they'll go through their water bowl and then they'll go and wrap them to sort of increase the humidity. I've seen them to where the female will tuck her head down into the coil and she's breathing on those eggs, and it sort of raises the humidity within the coils, just really freaking fascinating. I don't know. Again, I'm a snake nerd. So to me, that's really cool.
That is like, I didn't know like the picking them up and being able to move them like that, but the breathing in on them, I never thought about that, but that makes actual like perfect sense.
Yeah.
To help raise the humidity of them.
Yeah. I see that they are talking about, so there's some people feed during, I've seen people saying, Brian Cusco is maternally incubated this season, and he's been feeding the females frozen thawed rats while sitting on the eggs and hasn't had a problem. Here's in my experience where the problem comes in. Yeah, it's not a problem if the female's going to leave the eggs to sort of, if she has to defecate or whatever. But if not, she's going to do it on the eggs. Now you got another whole situation, right? So I don't know whether or not they do it in the wild. I can't say. You know, if a rat comes running along, is that female going to try to take advantage of that? My instincts tell me no. You know, because a python mom has one job, is to get those eggs to hatch.
Yep.
Right. That's what her job is. To me, I don't think that she would be looking for a meal. I don't think that she would be in that mindset. You know, you've seen it with ball pythons, right? When they turn off of food, they turn off of food to the point where they're gonna die. You know what I mean? So
I've got some here that are all right. If Nathan's still watching, he knows exactly what I'm gonna say. Right. I got a pastel pied female from him. All right. I got her in October, I think. And she never missed a meal with him at all. Whatever happened during that trip from there to coming to here, she has not taken a meal since.
Really?
Not since October. And it's freaking baffling. I've tried every trick in the book that is in the Ball Python Playbook 101.
Did you take her for another car ride?
Dude, I took her on like 2 car rides.
Did it work?
The next car ride, I'm thinking I'm going to take her back to Nathan and just let him get her back on food and then bring her back.
Yeah, that might be the play. Yeah, that's happened with me, and where snakes will feed at my house and then they go to his house and they don't, or I can't get it to feed and he takes it, because we're always giving each other snakes back and forth, and it's just funny, because we're experienced, right? We're not worrying about whether it's feeding or not. It's just like, okay, this one hatched. You want this one? Here you go. Take it, do what you want, or they'll be super chill at my spot. He gets them and they're evil, or vice versa, to where they're evil. And I'm like, this thing is just the spawn of Satan. And then he's got it. And it's just like, yeah, dude, it's super chill. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, God damn it. Can't ever get it right. But that's really carpet python breeding in a nutshell. The babies hatch out. They're 22 grams. I think, my basic setup for a baby's like a 5-quart, 6-quart bin type of deal. Your usual python bin would do fine. I try to give them perching, right? Perching is one of those things that for baby carpets that they're going to want to be up and nail down. What
do you use for your perching? Because I've seen like the mesh construction netting that's got
some people use
rigid,
that. Yeah,
that's kind of rigid. I've seen people using that. What do you use?
That's my go-to, I think, just because you can throw it out if it gets, if it's messed up or whatever. Just buy a roll of it and you just cut it however much you need. I do like the 3D designs, specialty designs. They make like those perches that sort of sit the water bowl and it's got all those different points in it, whatever. Yeah. But basically my setup is I take a perch of some sort. I have a 16-ounce water bowl because sometimes they'll perch on the water bowl. So that's another advantage of having that taller water bowl. And I give them, sometimes I'll use those. It just depends on, I prefer to use paper towel rolls as a hide for baby snakes because I think that snakes like to cram into tight spaces. And I think that with the paper towel roll, I can put it along the entire length of the tub, and that snake can thermoregulate within that tub because the heat's in the back, it's cooler at the front, and it can thermoregulate within that tub and not have to be outside of the hide. Whereas with those hides, those little, like those little black hides that you get, if you push them towards the back, it's all heat that's within inside that, and they can't thermoregulate without coming out of the hide unless you put 2 hides in there. But I just find it just tucks right over in the corner of the 6-quart thing. They climb in. I don't even cut it or anything. I make it real tight so they have to like really jam themselves to get in there. And like they'll really like as they start to put on some size, that they really love the fact of being crammed in that spot. So
okay.
So that's sort of what I do. And who doesn't? How can you be a snake keeper breeder and not have paper towels? So I just save the paper towel rolls as we're going through it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I don't know. I don't really have a problem with getting them to feed. A couple tricks that people use. Probably the most go-to is chick down. So like the down on the on a chick, right? So if you're going to
Yeah.
breed carpets, it's good to have like a couple chicks in the freezer that you can pull out and just pull some of that down out, put it in a bag, put the whatever it's eaten in that bag. I usually start babies with hoppers, bigger meals. They seem to want to take bigger meals. The problem is that they eat skinks in the wild when they're babies, so they're not 100% going to be drawn to the rodent per se, you know. So, and depending on what you're working with, it could be trickier. So, you know, if you're breeding diamond pythons, they're really hard to go. And if you're breeding something like, you know, jungle carpets, I don't think you'll have any problem with getting them to go. Chick down's the first thing that I would use. Another thing that I've done is like, so when a carpet goes to, and they're perched up, I don't know if ball pythons do this, but like right behind where the jaw and the neck is at, right? There's like right in this area. I sort of like tap them with the prey, and they sort of by instinct turn and wrap it. So it's sort of like elicits a strike. I've done that with a lot of different python species, but not with ball pythons. I've never
anytime I've tapped a ball python with anything, 9 times out of 10 it freaks out and balls up. It's like complete opposite of what you're trying to do there.
Right.
I've even, with my first clutch for this season, I had 3. They act interested, but they just don't commit to it or anything. No matter what you do, they'll follow it. They just don't strike at it.
Right.
And I finally got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna try to, do a slight assist feed on you. Right. And as soon as I got it in their mouth, they just freaking called it up, and it's just like, why didn't you just do step 1? Like apparently you were hungry. Yeah. Just do step 1.
It's and again, working with different pythons, like if you have Savu pythons, in my experience, right, when they wrap their entire body, like the entire body, head to tail, around that prey. Like, you're like, what the yeah. So, but yeah, that's sort of what's another one? There's another go-to that I use. Sometimes live will get them going. I try to stay away from live as much as I can, just because it's difficult for me to get. So, for people that breed though, like if you breed your own rodents, they'll take that like that, So, I think it's the movement or whatever. I've also, like, sometimes they can be picky to where if you leave them in overnight and just put them under where they're sort of doing, I don't know if people are familiar with the Morelia type of, I call it the Morelia feed pose, right? So basically what you do is you think about it, right? They're in a tree and they'll go and they'll set up in an ambush position, and they just sort of hang their head above where the rodent trail would be, where they would be going by, and they just wait. They just sit motionless with their head down. So if you see them with their head like that, they want to get some food. I feed mine different than other people. And as far as, I do like a cycle feed type of thing, to where, I'm not feeding them every 2 weeks type of deal. I don't have a schedule. I don't have any of that. I have sort of like, okay, I'm feeding you. Sometimes I'll feed you, like, I might feed them 6 mice in a shot. And then I don't feed them for a little while. Next time I might feed them a small rat. Next time I might feed them a large rat. Probably the females, as I'm getting towards, if they're going to breed, I'm going to bulk them up, say in the summertime, And then I don't feed snakes from when they're cleaning out in November until probably March.
Okay.
I don't feed them at all. Even the babies. I don't feed them either. Now, there's some debate on whether or not that they eat in the wild or not. I'm sure that they probably do, but I don't know. I sort of like try to get them into the rhythm of my room. Like what's going on in my room. This is what's going to happen. If they choose to, like, I'll try to feed them sometimes, but I don't really like push it as much in that time,
Okay.
So, yeah.
I know, like what you were saying with them hanging down, this guy, he knows which side of the tank I come in from with food. And when he's hungry, he'll sit there and he'll watch. Like this side over here, he'll just sit there and he'll watch it. like a freaking hawk. It makes the need for like live streams because like he'll be sitting there.
Right.
But then at the same token, it's like, God, it's like people probably think I don't feed this guy. It's like he just ate like the night before.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I think this is the thing that people, again, it's like we're trying to apply what we do as humans to what they do as snakes, right? So think about it in terms of like, if they're in the wild, how often are they going to get a prey? How often do they miss, you know? But they're going to take every shot they can get.
Yeah.
Because they don't know when the next one is coming. But when you're feeding them every 2 weeks, like on that regimen, I don't know. I found that like you sometimes will run into issues with, at least with carpet pythons, where they become fat, cancer, heart issues, just like people, you know, poor breeders, slugs, you know, that kind of stuff. So you really have to sort of be careful, in my opinion, when it comes. I think a lot of people in the hobby overfeed their snakes, you know, because it's the one time you get to interact with them, really, right? Especially if you're just breeding them, right? This is your interaction with them. And it's like, you know, I'm going to feed them, you know. It's so.
Plus, I also think a lot of people think like, oh, it's a python. It's got to be this big, girthy beast, and it's like, you know, like carpets, especially, like they're more of like they're built like an athlete. Basically, they're not fat. They're trim and muscular. Like like there's not a whole lot of fat really to them. But then that's also because, you know, they're semi-arboreal, so they're up in the trees.
Yes.
And you got to figure, you know, there are small branches on trees, so you can't be a fat ass up top and expect to stay up top.
Right. Yeah. So
now, have you had like for these two especially, like they were mousers when I got them. Like they would not take anything but mice. Finally got them switched over to rats through scenting, and they ate flawless. Now after this breeding season, they're back to wanting, like, and mind you, they haven't had anything that was scented for months because they had been on, you know, just plain full blown rats. Now all of a sudden they want scented prey again, where I gotta scent it with freaking mice again. It's just like, so have you ever heard of that? Like them relapsing like that?
So here's the thing when it comes to that. Yes, I've heard people talk about that. I have never, ever experienced it. And I think it's because of how I feed.
Okay.
If you're not getting fed, like say on a rhythm of every 2 weeks or whatever, every week, whatever it would be, I find that you're going to take whatever comes at you. I probably have had snakes that are maybe picky for certain things, but I've never had a problem going between rats and mice and mice and rats and birds and mice and rats and rabbits, and like I've never had an issue with any of that. But I think that probably the time to do it is right after she lays in. Like when she's looking for that meal, again, she's just going to take whatever is there. You know what I mean? So like if you're going to switch them over, that would be the time that I would switch them over, would be now, like when you're trying to feed her again.
The female took her first meal already.
Right.
And I still had put the rat in there. She just looked at it.
Really?
And I had a mouse already thawed for one of my ball pythons that refuses to have anything other than a mouse, but at least it takes frozen thawed. So that's it.
Yeah.
So I like rubbed that freaking mouse all over that rat, put it in there, and boom, she hit that. And I just thought, it's like, freaking really?
Wow. Yeah. It's weird. For people that are like, I'm trying to think, like people that just keep carpet pythons, I don't know if they have issues with that. For people that keep, like, I'm going to have to look into that, because that's got my mind going now. Like, why do some do that and some don't? Like, why are there some keepers that have no issues at all with switching prey items, and then there's other ones that do, I guess. And I think the jungles are probably the pickiest, but I don't know if that's because they're the most popular. You know what I mean? So it could be biased to where it's because they're the most popular carpet, that maybe that's the one that seems to have the most trouble with that type of thing. But
so there's more people working with them, so you're hearing more.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's not maybe it's in other ones too, and you just don't hear it because there's not as many people working with them type of deal. But I can't say, like, I mean, I don't know. All the people that I talk to and deal with, I don't know. I've had them where it's hard. Like sometimes it could be hard to get them to eat, but once they're eating, they'll eat they'll eat anything, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah. Lindsay, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Everybody, if anybody has questions here for Eric, feel free to drop them. There are actually, here's a question. James wants to know, should carpets have more like a boa body?
100%. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
I say, like,
maybe not as thick as a boa. I think boas are a little bit thicker.
Yeah, boas are very...
Or like a box almost. They're like a loaf of bread, right?
Yeah, they're like a loaf of bread. Yeah, that's exactly the best way to look at it. They're like a loaf of bread.
I think carpets are more like rat snakes.
Yeah.
They're the rat snakes of Australia. Rat snakes here in the U.S., they fill the same niche in the U.S. as carpets do in Australia. They're the same exact thing. Whereas it's funny. You look at these things, like a blackhead is the same as an indigo. They're doing the same thing. They're eating reptiles and whatnot. And there's just their whole, like, I don't know if you've ever handled a blackhead, or they're very different than other pythons, in my opinion. They're just different. I don't know how. Okay. They're more like a colubrid than a python almost. So
yeah, I've never held a blackhead. I've gotten to hold a Wilma over, and my buddy Chris is there from BNS, and
they remind me of king snakes.
Okay.
Where they just
he has a white lip there, which made me want it, man. His white lip has me wanting a freaking white lip so bad. I told him it because Chris breeds, like I said earlier in the little commercial thing for him, he breeds just a little bit of everything. So I know at some point he's probably going to be breeding that white lip. He's just letting her grow up. But man, I told him, I was like, when you do produce one, it's like, I need to have one just to have. Like, I don't have any plans on breeding it. I just want to have one.
So here's what I learned about white lips. Owen, he produced them last year.
Okay.
Last year? Yeah, last year.
Maybe maybe this came from Owen though too, because Chris is here in PA too.
Oh, really?
And this isn't a very big. I mean, I would say it's probably like within a year or so old.
They're super delicate when it comes to hydration. Ring pythons, white lip pythons. They're sort of like, and their skin is different, very thin. And I'm not saying this at all. I'm not saying that people should do this or not do this or whatever, whatever. Let's just say that, you change the water once a week in your carpet python's cage. And let's say that you're 3 days late because you went on a trip and you're coming back and there's no water in that thing. That carpet python is going to be fine. A white lip, a ring python, not so much. Not so much. Okay. They'll probably be dead. So last year, there you go. Yeah, I thought it was last year. Roughies are this year. But Owen was working on that project for 10 years. Almost as long as we've been doing MPR. He's been trying to breed those things, to the point where he's like banging his head against the wall trying to figure it out. But again, it's just staying persistent with them, and just figuring them out. You got Lisa Farini. She's out in the West Coast. She's bred them twice, I think. And obviously you got guys like Ryan Young that just produce them like they're, that's nothing.
Somebody's got the method down. They just don't let everybody know yet.
Yeah, that's nothing. I just put them together and they just breed.
Like, the next thing you got eggs.
Yeah.
Charlie, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, Charlie. I hope you got that clown test cooking soon here, brother, because I'm gonna need it soon. These Xanthics that are 50% head clown. No, I need to know. So come on, brother. Come on.
Nice.
Thanks for tuning in, Charlie. Greatly appreciate it. Charlie's going to be on here in another couple weeks as well as a guest.
Sweet.
Greg here wants to know, what's the true size difference in coastals versus jungles?
So if you're okay, so let's just talk about what's in the US, right? We're just going to forget about the wild and all that stuff and what's in Australia and all that. Here in the US, there isn't a difference. They're the same size. 5 to 7 foot. 7 foot would be max. Obviously, I think there's a lot of times people think about when they say like the maximum size of this snake is 10, it's like say a coastal carpet, the maximum size is 12 feet, right? Yeah, that was one snake that got 12 feet. That doesn't mean that every snake is going to be 12 feet. That just means that it's just like human beings, right? If you have a human that gets 7'6", I'm 5'7". So what happened with me? You know what I mean? It's not but the average size of a male human being is what? I don't know, 5'9" or something like that. You know what I mean?
5'10", something like that's
probably something like that, right? So obviously you're going to have people that are shorter, and then you're going to have people that just are way outside of that spectrum, right? But for the most part, with the stuff that's in the U.S., excluding Brisbane carpets, like the locality Brisbane carpets, they probably could get maybe bigger. He let one female go. Yeah. You're looking at 5 to 7 foot. So size wise, no, there's no difference. When it comes to big carpets, what ones get big? So Brettles, they get big. 9-10 feet. Females will be 9-10 feet in that area. If you want to get a Brettles and you want a little bit smaller, I would recommend getting a male. They're probably 6 to 7 feet. It's sort of my things with the super dwarf retics, man. Like they say, like, I don't know. I think it's like disingenuous to say that it's going to be the size of a carpet python, because they're saying they're looking at it as the biggest carpet python is 12 feet, but a regular super dwarf retic is going to be somewhere between 10 and 12 feet. That's just, what I'm saying? So we're not in the same. It's not the same to me, but sometimes I've heard people sort of market it that way. And it's like, oh, it's the size of a carpet python. No, that's not right. You're just confusing people.
With the Brettles, they're the ones that are like more like they get like that really pretty brick red, right?
Yeah, so they're found in the center of Australia, Alice Springs. They're like right out there in the middle, and they're sort of like on an island in a desert, if that's how it's sort of looked at, right? They're sort of in this little pocket of desert that's surrounded by even worse, more desert, right? So they've sort of been stuck out here, and they're sort of on the, so they're their own species, but they sort of get lumped in with the carpet pythons because clearly they look like a carpet python. Yeah. And they're related to carpet pythons. They're actually, I think they're more closely related to diamond pythons than any other ones, which is interesting that they're sort of that same way. But beautiful. I mean, yeah, they got black on their tails and they're red at the top, and like, oh man, the hypo ones, and just like bright orange, bright red. It's great. They're beautiful snakes.
And I've noticed there's not many people that work with them, though, or at least that I've seen at shows.
No.
Like, there's very few that I don't even know. I think I might have seen one. I forget who it was, though.
Probably I would say there's probably two people that come to mind for me when it comes to Brettles pythons. One, you obviously got Nick Mutton, right? He's been working with them, and he sort of put them on the map, so to speak, if you will, like taking them to the next level. And then there's Casey Cannon. He's down in, I think he's in Georgia. He's done a lot of work with and made some really, really awesome Brettles pythons. But they're a beautiful snake. And the thing about them is, like with the other carpets where you get that nippiness sometimes, or like but here's the thing, man. Sometimes I've heard people say that they have asshole Brettle snakes, like they just are assholes. And it's like, typically though, they're really chill snakes.
Okay.
And really resilient because what's that?
Says he's got Brettles. I'm assuming it's about the Brettles.
Oh yeah, he breeds them. He does, but
so maybe that's where I saw him at then. was probably
Maybe.
like that up at Hamburger or something. I bet.
You think the jungles are hard to sell? Man, Brettles are like, they're just gray. So like, as babies, it's just, they ain't showing no signs of red. And you're trying to tell somebody like, yeah, this snake's going to turn red. I promise. Sure.
I think that's the only downfall to carpet pythons is unless
yes,
and you're familiar with carpets and you've done your research, you don't
yes.
know that snake's going to turn out to be as beautiful as it is.
It's one of the reasons I kind of moved out of the whole show scene, because it's just, unless you bring an adult, you're not, you know what I mean? It's they're not going to get it. And even then I found that a lot of people just, don't get it, especially somebody that's trying to get into carpets. I think they I understand. They kind of feel like I'm trying to sell them something. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, this gray snake is going to turn yellow and black or red, and and it's like, oh yeah, sure it is.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Greg here wants to know, so do all carpets vary that much in size between male and female?
No, not all of them. So with the Darwins, the Poplins, the coastals, and coastals maybe a little bit, but let's just, again, we're sticking with what's in the U.S. The jungles, the coastals, the Poplins, the Darwins, and the inlands, they're all pretty much the same size, male to female. Now the southwestern carpets, I think they're one of the difference between the males and females is like one of the biggest difference in any species on the planet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're like, the females are huge and the males are tiny, but they're out in this desert where, I think it has to do with prey selection. Those females are getting bigger so they can eat things like, I don't know, rabbits and stuff like that, where the males are picking off like probably bearded dragons or something like that,
the tiny stuff.
Yeah. So
I know, Greg. Well, Greg, if you come up for the barbecue, dude, you'll get to see. I mean, the male that's behind me, he doesn't look it, but fully stretched out, he's probably about 6 foot.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be a little deceptive, like because they're thin and not like, it's like, a retic or a berm that's at 6 foot. They're also fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas, or even a blood python, right? You could have a blood python. I think they're somewhere in the 5 foot to 6 foot range, but they look massive because they're like this big. You know what I mean? So it's like, holy shit.
blood pythons are like a freaking bratwurst, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
I had a big red blood. She was right about 6 foot, and if I remember correctly, she was about 26 pounds. Like, I couldn't wrap my hand. I couldn't touch both hands around her. She was big.
Yeah. One of the things I had to learn about them is that I didn't see them pythons until I kept them, was that like right before they're gonna strike, their sort of eye like twitches and like it's kind of weird, and then they don't strike like, again, I'm used to carpets where it's like they're striking and it's coming at you like type of deal. They sort of like spring at you or something. Like they're just sort of like, it's like a Jack in the Box almost or something.
Yeah.
It's like but
well, even like the babies, if you watch some of the videos with the blood babies, like they launched their whole like they launched themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
and even their
like a foot.
I can't remember exactly what it's for, but even if you just feel like the structure, their backbone is just like solid and hard. Whereas like on other pythons, I don't feel like, it feels like you could, and I think maybe they're using it as a defense, right? To where they spring like that because their backbone is so hard, it like hits whatever's trying to get them, and they go off running away, something like that. But
that could be. I just know I'll never forget feeding that blood python. I'll put it that way. You would end up, if you were holding on to, like, you had to watch what you were holding on to.
Yeah.
Because depending what aspect of the rodent you were holding on to, you may end up with that part of the rodent still on the tongs. I don't know how many times I had a foot or part of a tail or something, and it's just like freaking. It's like, good God.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I miss having them though. Oh, I had blood pythons. I had a green tree python, which I don't know. Maybe I've got something where I'm attracted to these things that got these reputations of being like angry snakes. I don't know.
Oh, you're going in the
But,
Owen territory.
but dude, my green tree, she was a Biak, and of course, by reputation, they're supposed to be the most angry out of all of them.
Yeah.
She was a sweetheart during the day.
Yeah.
Daytime, you could go in there, interact with her, pull her out, no problems.
Yes.
At nighttime,
forget it, man.
If you got within 5 foot of that cage, or I say cage, I should say enclosure, she was striking at the movement of you like it was like the light switch went off.
Yeah.
And like I kept everything in my room because at that point, God, that seemed like forever ago.
Right.
See, I'm 36. I was maybe 18, something like that, roughly.
Okay.
Probably about like 18. So I was still living at home.
Okay.
And everything was in my room. So like I had to like put her in the one far corner where I knew I didn't have to remotely go to at
right.
nighttime unless it was a dire emergency.
Yeah.
Just that way she wouldn't hurt herself.
Yeah, I think with Morelia, right? Because they're feeding at night, right? Yeah. So that's when they're going to be turned on, and they're gonna that instinct of just seeing heat come in front of their heat pits. They're just boom, it's going to hit. So I kind of make a rule, like once the snake lights are out, unless I'm going in to just look at them in the dark, with a red light on my head or something like that. I don't. Once the light's out, that's out. Lights are out.
That's it. Game
Which
over.
may be why I don't get bit. I don't know. It could be. What I mean?
I used to be the same way, like especially with the carpets. 99% of the time, if the lights are off, I'm not going in there at all.
Right.
Now there have been a couple of live streams I had been a guest on, and people wanted to see the carpets.
Right.
And of course, it's nighttime.
Sure.
It's just oh my God, it's like I'm gonna get lit up so bad. It's like, all right, you know what? We're just gonna try it. And surprisingly, just tapping them with the hook, they came out really easy.
Yeah.
But up until you got them clicked out of that, once they saw the cage, like the tops moving, I mean, they were on cue. They thought, hey, it's time to feed. But you definitely had to break that mentality on them before you went in there at all.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
No, it's getting a little late, Eric. So I'm gonna just hit you with a couple of things. I've been trying to keep these things down to 2 hours, but we're at 2.5, and I'm fine with that.
Oh shit!
Hopefully you're fine.
Yeah.
I'll go, I knew this would be a great live where we could just kind of cruise with it. But tell us a little bit about MPR, how you got it, like how it got started, and like how it's growing, and just dive into some about some of the stuff about carpets and coffee and everything.
Yeah, so MPR, Morelia Python Radio, is the original one we did back in, like I said, we started in 2011, just to sort of put carpet pythons, scrub pythons, blood pythons, all those, the other on the map, so people could sort of learn about them and have a place where they could come and listen to them and sort of listen to people that have an experience with them and what they've done with them, seeing them in the wild or breeding them or keeping them or whatever the case would be. So we sort of did that. And there was obviously if you're doing it for 12 years, every once in a while you want to talk about something different or whatever. So we started to branch off and like cover other things somewhere in the middle of like MPR's thing. I don't know, years go by, we sort of went back on track to just talking about pythons and stuff like that. And I think we got to the point where I felt like I think sometimes if you do a podcast and you're not putting out the correct information, or you're putting out information that's old information, or you're not talking to people that are in the know, sometimes you're doing more of a disservice than a service, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
for me, my wheelhouse is pythons, not colubrids, not venomous, not lizards, not any of that. So I had this idea, like, I guess it's 3 years ago, that I wanted to start sort of a network. and sort of give the people that maybe either A, don't necessarily know how to do a podcast, but definitely should be doing a podcast, and sort of have like a focus on other species by people that keep those. I think the first one that we sort of branched out and did, Owen and Riley did one called Colubrid Corner, and they would pick a species of colubrid and sort of talk about it. And then Zach Loafman, Dr. Zach Loafman, he's a herpetologist basically and a teacher and whatnot. He loved MPR and what we did and the whole thing, and he wanted to do the same exact format but do it about colubrids. So I teamed up with him, and now we're working with him, and that sort of brought colubrid and colubroid radio into the MPR network, right? Another one, I sort of maybe a couple years ago, I started to get into monitors. A lot of herping I did in Australia, see these cool monitors, and I wanted to learn more about them because we'd be going on these herp trips, and I sort of knew pythons, but I didn't know these other things, and I sort of wanted to learn more about them. So then we started the Monitor Keeping podcast. So that sort of joined the network. I really wanted Justin Julander, who wrote multiple books on the complete carpet with Nick. He did the Green Tree book. He did a complete children's python. He did the Knobtail book. He's just an awesome guy. He's someone that I herp with all the time as much as I can. I'm leaving in 14 days to go herp with him in Utah, so that's going to be cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I wanted him to do something, and he wanted to do something. He used to do a podcast before where he sort of talked about, like, he would take a paper or whatever, because he's a virologist, so he's kind of like, he's in the scientific field or whatever. And he wanted to do something different than the whole like interview the breeder type of podcast type of thing. So he came up with this idea of Reptile Fight Club, where they take a topic
and listen to that today,
and they sort of debate. Sometimes he'll bring a guest on, but he brought on another old head Morelia guy, Chuck Poland. He's an awesome guy. I got to herp with him a couple times too, but he was back on the Morelia Python forums back in the day and whatnot. And he's sort of been a fan of ours through the years and whatnot since MPR started and whatnot. So then we added that one in. We added the Australian Herpetoculture podcast because I thought it would be cool to have Australians talking about Australian reptiles, and their hobby and how it's different, and how some of their herping things, and they're going to have access to people that maybe we don't have access to necessarily. And so they joined on. So I don't know if he has the main guy, Luke, he sort of has a YouTube channel called Beach's Scaly Beast. And I like to surround myself with people that sort of have that same idea as me and like are good people that really want to do good things for the hobby and really, present it in a way. And I just love what he does. He does it's another aspect of it, right? It's like natural enclosures and all that type of thing that he does. And he does some amazing thing. I think it's almost like art to me, you know what I mean? Yeah. More than like the keeping thing of it. Who else am I forgetting? And then, so Carpets and Coffee was something that Riley was doing. He did like a live stream on his YouTube channel. And so this was Riley's thing that he was doing. And I started to need some help with the podcast and stuff. So me and Owen sort of decided that we were going to bring in a couple more people to sort of take the weight off of us, so to speak. So this is where we met up with Riley, and this is how we met up with Lucas. And we met those two guys. They're much younger than me. Owen's sort of in the middle, but those guys are like I look at them as the future of herpetoculture, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sort of like to set it up to pass the baton. Riley, he had a lot going on with them, so he sort of stepped back from Carpets and Coffee, and we decided to keep it going. I look at Carpets and Coffee, it's more of like a hangout type of thing, right? That's sort of what it is. Where at MPR, we're talking to a guest, we're talking to about a topic, if you will. Whereas Carpets and Coffee is more of a hangout, just a live stream type of thing. So that's sort of how I differentiate the two. I feel like I'm forgetting them, and
it's still Nick Carpets and Coffee is still full of it's still jam packed, even though you guys are just sitting around bullshit and hanging out. It's still packed full of good information, though. It's not
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
not just
100%.
a hangout thing. It's still packed full of great info for anybody.
I think it's sort of like if you ever wanted to, well, I don't know why you would, but if you ever wanted to know what it would be like to hang out with me and Owen and Lucas and, sometimes Riley, this is what it would be like, Oh, that's the other one, right? So, well, so we have clue. So to me, I was trying to cover all aspects of the snake world type of thing. And we did a field herping podcast for a while, and I don't know. It's so difficult because Nipper, my good friend Nipper, he's over in the UK. It's so difficult to line up times and stuff. And I don't know. It was just hard to get it to go or whatever. But then we had Boas that came on because I wanted somebody to talk about boas. So, I mean, who better to talk about boas than Warren Booth and, Keith McPeak and
I
Rob
want to get
Stone.
Warren Booth on here at some point because he was a guy. He did a live stream thing with Billy there from Mutation Creation.
Yeah.
And Warren, like he's such a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
And then the scientific information that he provides. That's why I started feeding my snakes the way that I feed them,
right,
because of him and
correct,
all that information I picked up from him.
Right.
It's like,
so it's sort of a passion project for me to sort of give those guys a platform to get their knowledge out to the world. Right. So me and Owen sort of took on all this, to sort of have these podcasts all under the MPR umbrella. And that's sort of where we're at. Sometimes it's difficult balancing all these podcasts and editing them and trying to keep everybody straight and whatnot. But I don't know. I sort of look at it as like, that's sort of why I transitioned away from like being a full-time breeder type of thing to this is going to be my mark on the hobby. Right. And MPR, what I did is I started to introduce some things that are sort of like, they're still on MPR, but they're sort of an off topic thing. One is herp history, right? To me, I'm just fascinated at the history of herpetoculture. I'm fascinated for the people that have come before us and paved the way, good or bad, say what you will, but I think their story should be told because I think it would give younger keepers and breeders coming into the hobby a better perspective of where the hobby has come. I think people just in general have this, like, if it didn't happen within your lifetime that you remember, it kind of didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, what? Wait, what? That never happened. Yeah, man. So that's sort of, we just had Craig Trumbauer on there. I don't know if you've ever heard of that guy, but he's an old school guy. He's written even more than snake keeping and even more than snake keeping, 2 books that were on it, but like just the wealth of information, how he tells a story, what it was like in the early days, what it was like with these guys when they were just trying to figure out these species. For anybody that keeps pythons, if you don't know what the Blue Bible, you know what the Blue Bible is? What we call. Have you heard
I'm
that?
not gonna lie to you. I have no idea what the Blue Bible is. I'm
okay,
not gonna lie.
So there's this book that came out, and I want to say it was in the 80s. So it was the breeding and keeping of pythons and boas. And basically, it was the go-to book for anybody that wanted anything to breed pythons or boas, right? So it's that's why they call it the Blue Bible, right? It's kind of, some of it's outdated now or whatever. But anyway, to talk to the guy that wrote that book, I want to say he's in his 80s. But like the stories he had about how he's like, he was a doctor and he's over here in Bismarck in the archipelago and he found these ring pythons and he like put them in a sock and put them in his pocket and got on the plane and flew. You know what I mean? It's just these crazy stories. Cameron from Bushmaster, he was another one that we talked to, Keith McPeak, just Tom Crutchfield. We talked to him as well. Like I said, some of them have those histories where people are sort of like, I don't like that one, or but to me, the history's the history, whether you like it or not. This is what the history is, So
if it wasn't for that stuff that happened, where we're at today would not be where we're at today.
Yeah, I find it a bit hypocritical for people to talk about smuggling that work with Australian reptile. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on, man. Where do you think that Walma python came from? Like, come on, man. You know, like, let's be real. Like, yeah, I know you didn't smuggle it, but it still got smuggled or you wouldn't have had it.
Yep.
So here we are. So you can say whatever, however you feel about it. That's sort of where it is. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a labor of love, man. I just know when I was getting into like those weird species of stuff that it was difficult to find information or difficult to sort of talk to people about it.
Yes.
And now you have somebody that's basically, you know, talking for a couple hours about their experiences with whatever species that is. So to me, that's sort of my give back to the hobby for everybody that's given me stuff throughout the years. So yeah, and then the other thing I guess that we did was, which, you know, was kind of our baby, and it's kind of mutated into. Now I see there's all these different kind of fests. Not that we kind of took it from the Chondro guys, but we started Carpet Fest back in 2012, and basically it was a get together that we had here. First, it started in Maryland.
Okay.
And every year we'd get together. It's basically a barbecue, sort of similar to what you're saying, you know, and we would do an auction for US Arc at some points, and, you know, and then you started to see other people sort of say, oh, can I have a Carpet Fest on the East Coast? I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. So then you had an East Coast one, then there's a Southern one, there's a Southeast one, then there's a Northwest one, then there's a UK one, and then Australia was trying to do one. And now I see Retic Fest and Monitor Fest, and like, you know, it's just like, it's good because I think we're always on computers all day talking to each other, and you know, you're not really sometimes things can be oh, there you go, James. Things can be taken out of context. You know, you could read things wrong, you know, and then when you meet them in person, you realize, oh, this person's really a good person, you know. And I've made some amazing friendships from that. And that's, to me, that was like the thing about the Morelia community that I absolutely love, was just the people in the community are just like, they're all, dare I say, they're like family to me. You know what I mean? It's, here we are 15 years later, and like, you know, we're at weddings together, we're at, you know, special events together, and, you know, I don't know, it's just pretty awesome. So
I know exactly where you're coming from with, you know, getting to meet the people in person. If it wasn't, I don't know if Phil's even in here, but my buddy Phil there at Finger Snakes, he had organized, God, was that last year? No, wait, I think it was last year. He had organized, like, he's actually the reason why I even had the barbecue technically. He did a thing where we all got together, and it's more like, I think I'm mainly the only person I'm the farthest west. Everybody else is basically over there where you're at, Eric.
Right.
But we all got together, went to Shady Maple for breakfast.
Okay.
And so that kind of sparked everything off. It got me to know all these other great people.
Yeah.
Now I talk to those people more than I talk to my own family.
Right. Right.
Like, if I don't talk to them at least probably once a day, even if it's just through Instagram chat,
yeah,
like, something's wrong. Like, we're constantly, every day, we're all talking.
Right.
But after, you know, doing that, then it's like, I admit, you know, I was like, you know, that was really fun. Let's go. And Chris wants to know where you're from.
I'm in Warminster, Pennsylvania. I was born in Philadelphia, then I moved out to the suburbs. So,
because Chris is having a barbecue this weekend that we're actually getting all together for too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But after that, I was like, you know, I got to think, it's like, my house, like, I don't have a huge place, but the yard is really nice. It's really set up nice to have a barbecue, nice flat area to play cornhole and, you know, games like that, and just hang out. And I thought, well, why not? And so, and like my buddy Chris here, he texted me last year. He goes, hey, are you still going to do that barbecue? I was like, yeah. You know, it's like, I was dragging my feet a little bit on it. Just life in general just kind of happened. But it kicked me into gear, saying, okay, I got to do this. So went and had, did that one, and it went off great. Like everybody had a good time. I didn't realize how much of a good time everybody did have, or at least how they told me. All right, Chris is to DM him.
Okay.
Or he's going to DM you.
Okay.
That you're like 30 minutes from him. So maybe you can come out and hang out with us on Saturday.
Okay. Yeah.
But like so many, like a bunch of the guys were saying, what's the date for the next one? And I
yeah,
kind of sat there. I was like, really, you guys want to have another one? And I got how with it, like, why not? Like, I had a good time. It sucks that when you're running it though,
it does.
You don't have the chance to mingle as much. But at the same time, you get to watch everybody else mingle, and you take it. I don't know. You take like something a little bit different out of it, as that they, because
I feel like
I'm helping to bring other people together.
Yeah, I feel like I'm I think my job in the Morelia community is sort of the herder, right? I sort of like bring all these people together, like, here you go, let's go. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying with the the stress of throwing an event like that. And one of the mistakes that I made is that, and this year is why I made this rule, and talked about it for a long time, but like, I'm not going to do, I know this sounds crazy, right? But I'm not going to do like snake room tours, because I would spend the entire day just in my snake room. You know what I mean? And like, it's like, I'm sweating my ass off because there's so many people in there. It's like, oh my God, it's like 85 degrees in here, and I'm in here all day. My poor wife is now in charge of everybody. There's like 120 people here, and she's running around, and I can't have a barbecue and then put it all on her, so no snake room tours, that kind of thing. I know that sucks. I know. The other thing is too, it's like, we kind of made this rule that people shouldn't bring snakes to somebody's place that has snakes, because you know how things go.
Makes sense.
It's like,
that makes sense.
And then people started bringing stuff to trade, and they're coming from Hamburg, and they're bringing all the mites with them. And then then it's 2 weeks after Carpet Fest, and I'm like, why do I see mites in my snake cage? Like, where? And that's when I started to realize, like, oh shit, this is from people not even doing it on purpose, right? You know how it goes. You're at the Hamburg, it falls on your shoe, you walk to, and next thing you know, it's in somebody's snake room, and there you go. So that's another reason why I can't do that. I cannot go through, because I don't know if you've ever had mites with a big collection, but
I have not had mites.
Holy shit,
knock
man.
on wood, not yet.
If there's anything to ever make you want to quit, that's it. that is it, 100%, because it's just, oh my God. So I can't do that again. And plus, I want to spend time with the people.
Yeah.
Hamburg mites. Exactly.
Yeah. The worst thing I had was a couple weeks ago, and I have no idea where the hell they came from, but I got ants in some of my bedding.
Oh,
and like
shit.
there was like 4 or 5 different tubs that had these huge nests. Ants.
Oh gosh.
And it freaking, dude, it drove me nuts.
Right.
I yanked the snakes out, took all the bedding, threw it out, put ant traps all over the freaking place. If I saw ants, I probably shouldn't have done it, but because I had some frontline spray, because we all know now you can't find frontline spray.
Right.
But I had some of that frontline spray, and I thought, well, I wonder if it's like this stuff kills mites. I wonder if it kills ants. So I started spraying some of these ants. It's like, son of a bitch, it kills ants too. So I started spraying where these ants were crawling.
Right.
And then I got to think about it. It's like, you know what? It's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, because that's like liquid gold right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, Florida, dude, I don't know if it was in the cocoa, Chris, or what, but it was funny because my wife had said, she goes, yeah, she said about we've got ants upstairs all of a sudden, and ants are normally like, that springtime, they kind of all wake up. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I was going through doing some really deep cleaning on stuff and coming across these nests. I'm like, what the hell?
Wow,
And it's
that's
like,
crazy.
okay, it's like, well, maybe it's like, did the ants come from outside? Did they come in the cocoa? Like, how?
Right.
But it's like, I emptied out, like I said, 4 or 5 tubs. The next day, I think 3 of those tubs had filled back up with each having another nest.
Oh shit.
So I dumped that out.
Wow.
And by the next rotation, they were gone. Thank God. Knock on wood, they're gone.
Right.
But oh man, I was like that
Yeah.
had me stressed. I don't even want to think about mites.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, like I said, I just can't go through it again. So, but that's you're not coming to see my snakes. That's not why you're coming to Carpet Fest. You're coming to meet, mingle, and it's a good way to sort of like get people to put a name to your face, especially if you're like, hey man, this is an opportunity. To me, this was the sucky thing about reptile shows, right? Everybody wants to hang out, right? But the person at the table is trying to sell snakes, and you got people walking up, and you want to talk to them like, hey man, what are you breeding this year? Like, what's going on? Oh, I got this question, or whatever it would be. And you sort of feel like you're taking away from their time to sort of sell snakes, and it's like, let's take that part out of it. Let's get rid of the selling of the snakes. Let's just hang out, drink a beer, eat some food, whatever it is, sit around the fireplace, grab a guitar, whatever. It's one of those things. So that's really kind of what Carpet Fest is about. So
see, that's awesome. I would love to go to a Carpet Fest one of these days.
Yeah, man. It's in August 10th, 8th, something like that. Yeah, I'll send you the date.
And so send me the info and stuff. And it's at your place this year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And send me the info, and I'll see if I can't make it.
Yeah, man.
I'd love to come, dude.
Yeah.
There's so much, like, even just being new into the Morelia aspect, there's so much I feel to learn, and then just to get to know everybody, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and then people, like I said, to put a name with it. Oh, it's the 12th. See, my co-pilot's in there. He's steering the ship. It's all right. Somebody's paying attention. But
Chris says, Jeremy, we are there. All right, so maybe Chris is coming too. Chris has a female jungle that I was gonna pimp out my one male to him just to try to get a clutch of jungles this year.
Yeah,
but
I know.
We just never sealed the deal on it.
So I mean, is his wife's birthday? Oh no.
I don't know if you're gonna. I don't know if you'll live after that, Chris.
Yeah. I know Nick Mutton is coming. He's coming out. Oh. Ryan Young's coming out. I think Justin Julander's coming out. Trying to think who else from the West Coast. I think there's a few people that are coming from out west, and then obviously people come from south. And I know Bill Stiegel, he's coming up. He's going to come up. But obviously Keith McPeak, Matt Manitola, he'll be there. Again, a lot of Pennsylvania people, Maryland, Jersey. Mike Curtin, he always comes. His family always comes. Always talk. Jason Balin, I don't know if you know who he is as far as carpets go, but yeah. A lot of people that if you're into pythons, it's kind of like
it's where you want to be.
And it's kind of this thing, like, I'm not saying that there's secrets or things that we don't talk about on the air that you would talk about at a thing, but as you know, it's different when you're not being recorded and you're having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? So like if there's something that comes up like, oh, where are these jungle carpets? Where did they come from? Like, you know what I'm saying? If you wanted to know something like that, obviously you might not say that on the air because of certain things, and you don't want to get people in trouble, that kind of thing. And like, but if you're hanging out drinking beers,
it's more likely it might come out.
Yeah, exactly. No, and he might be there. Owen might be there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What is he? I mean, he just reads rough scales and white lips. He's not quite on the par of, a Ryan Young or I know he's trying to be that level, but Oh, my good friend Rob Stone, he's coming out. He always comes, you know, so it's always, like I said, man, there's so many people. I know there's people I'm forgetting. Scott Borden, he's another guy that comes out. He's another East Coast guy. There's just so many people. It's usually, I'd say it's 100 to 120. I think this year might be 150 people. I don't know, man.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I was gonna say I don't even remotely have a head count as to what I'm expecting for our get together in July.
Yeah.
I know. I think our first year, I think we probably had like, I say it's probably like close to 20 people roughly in that neighborhood.
Okay.
I'm thinking we're probably gonna be. There's gonna be a lot more than 20 now.
Yeah. The first Carpet Fest, I think there was maybe 15 people there. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was. I think there was more green tree python people than there was carpet people. So, but yeah, it's a good time, man. It's fun, and we haven't done it through COVID. You know, we took COVID off and whatnot, so this is the first one back. And
oh, nice.
We did one every year from 2012 up until COVID 2019. So,
okay.
So
nice.
Took a couple years off. So,
well, I hope I can make it, dude. I really do.
Yeah.
More than that, but we had close to
35.
Okay, maybe we did have 35. Yeah, I mean, it just, you don't really realize how many people, actually show up. Chris says Saturday should be 50 plus. Nice. Chris, I got to talk to you then this week about like what types of chips you want me to grab and all that good stuff. Jason says shirts.
Yes, Jason, there will be shirts. I have it on my list of things to do. I just haven't gotten around to do it. My endless list of things to do. But yeah, they'll be. My sister's working on a design to try to do a shirt. So yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, last chance. If you guys have any questions for Eric, I've got one more question for him. Actually, I had more than that, but we're hitting that 3-hour mark. It's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I gotta be up at 5 o'clock. Eric, I don't know what time you have to be up, but
4 o'clock.
No
worries, though. No. It's all good.
All right. Then we'll make this cool.
I need 3 hours of sleep, and I'm good.
You're kind of like me that if I can get 3 hours, I'm still dead. If I can get 5, I'm okay. 5 hours, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Seeker and Roses says made it to the live stream for the first time. Thanks for tuning in, Seeker.
Yeah, welcome.
My last question is, do you have any tips for people wanting to get into carpet pythons and or people wanting to start a live stream, YouTube's channel, that type of deal?
Okay, carpet pythons. Well, I would say start with, if you're into books, the More Complete Carpet Python is the way to go, right? If that's your media of choice that you're going to take in, that's where I would go. If you're into podcasts, obviously there's 12 years of Morelia Python Radio talking to, I think, almost everybody that's anybody in the carpet python world is in there somewhere. Every topic we've touched, every morph we've touched. There's episodes where it talks about specific morphs for 2 hours. I mean, there's just so much stuff there that you can pick apart. If you wanted to listen to the older episodes, you got to go to Blog Talk Radio. I will warn you that, again, we did podcasts when podcasts weren't a thing, so the audio can be kind of crazy, if you will. Obviously, we've improved that, now, but that's sort of where that is. As far as I'm trying to think YouTube wise, I guess really the only guy that's doing anything carpet python wise solid is probably Riley, so I would check him out. Check out Riley Jimison. He does, I think it's weekly that he does his YouTube stuff. And he's
normally he's got a video once a week at least.
Yeah. So, I think, but I really think that if you're into listening or you got to commute or, whatever it is, just Google whatever it is you're asking about a carpet python and put MPR behind it or Morelia Python Radio, and I promise you'll find that episode somewhere on the internet. That's what I would say. as far as if you want to start a live stream, I mean, I don't know. I kind of was thrown into this and just I've learned as I have gone. I mean, I use StreamYard like you do. I think the things that I would say if you want to do a podcast is like try to figure out something different. It's sort of like what I say with even with reptiles, like try to figure out a different spot so that you're sort of not doing the same thing so that, you know, people will come and listen to it. I think that, you know, another thing I would say as a tip is like, if you're going to have a co-host, make sure that you have good chemistry with the co-host. Like me and Owen joke, and I kind of think that this is for real, but I don't know if there would be NPR. I think NPR would stop and something else would begin if I chose, like if Owen said, look, dude, I'm out, I quit. I think NPR would have to stop and something else would come in its place that would, maybe it would be a different podcast, because now it's going to be a different guest and there's just not the same chemistry that is there. I mean, do your research, you know, before you're going to go on, have a, you know, have some notes. So even if you're not, you know, writing specific questions down or whatever it is, but sort of have an idea of like, you know, like, I mean, this is how I grew, you know, because it would sort of be like by the seat of your pants type of thing. And then you're saying the wrong stuff. And again, I think as content creators, whether it's podcast, YouTube, whatever, I can't tell you how crazy it makes me when I hear people talk about carpet pythons and they don't know what they're talking about, or they didn't do the research, or they researched it and they researched the old stuff. And it just drives me absolutely crazy, because I feel like all the work that me and Owen have done has now been shot down by, like, say you get some main YouTuber, you know what I mean? Like I'm talking about like the YouTubers, pet tubers, or whatever you want to call it. And they start talking about carpet pythons and what they're saying is not accurate. And then it becomes like, oh my God, man, the 5 years of work that we just did, you just shot down in 10 minutes. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, just get it right, you know? And that's something that I've learned over the years. And this is sort of like, I've had Rob Stone sort of in the background. And this is why I say he's like sort of he's like the library of herpetoculture. He would contact me after the show, after he listened to it, and he would say, okay, I think this is wrong, man. You said this wrong. Do this. This is what this is, you know, blah, 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 blah. Sort of like, I guess in a way, kind of like a producer in the background, if you will, you know, I don't know. Yeah. If you call me the podfather, I guess he's the concierge, you know, type of deal. But yeah, I don't know. And have fun with it, man. Don't make it so serious and whatnot. It's, you know, I don't know. I just have fun with it. I like talking snakes. Like I said, I'm a snake nerd. And that's kind of where he's on 2018. He's been listening and he's up to 2018, James. Man, he's on a roll. I know he started at the beginning, I think. Damn, you're going, man. You're going strong. But yeah, man, you know, I just find what you think would be like, what you think would be good for the hobby, and sort of go with it. Don't worry about what NPR does or what you do or what any of the other podcasts do. Just sort of find your niche and just go with it, man. You know? Yep. So
that's, and like for me, like I started off where every show is basically, it started feeling too repetitive. It's like basically the same questions, and it seemed like it was just, you know, I was even starting to question, it's like, why am I constantly doing the same thing over and over?
Yeah.
And that's like, and that was basically season one. It was basically just a rinse and repeat. Now with season two, you know, hopefully everybody has noticed it. You know, there is a little bit of the normal, how'd you get in, you know.
Yeah, sure.
You know, for like the newer breeders and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But I've tried to get people like yourself, and some even big, you know, some big names out there on where I know, hey, I can run with different topics, or, you know, like the chemistry's there and you can just run wild with the stream to where it breaks up the monotony. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You're still getting good information out, but it's, you know, entertaining at the same token. You know, I think that that's very, very important to keeping the audience retention.
Yeah. Owen's sort of like, he's my gatekeeper. I call him my gatekeeper, right? Because I'll have some I like to think outside the box. I like to throw thoughts out into the universe and see what happens with it. You know, like, I had this thought. Let me throw it out into the universe and see what happens. Owen's the one that's like, block them, and you know, like, no, we can't do that. You know, that kind of thing. But he also, I particularly think he's one of the funniest people I know, and he's like the wittiest guy I know. And like, if I get too serious just by him saying some comment, will just sort of like break up that, dare I call it, nerdy type of talk. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like that balance, you know, because you don't want people to like, you know, I mean, if I'm reading out a scientific paper or something, I'm not saying that I do that, but like, just say if you're reading a scientific paper, like you listen to that for 2 hours, that can get kind of boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if like you have somebody on there that's like inserting the funny to it, if you will, and
you don't want to Ben Stein it.
yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. So
Seeker here wants to know, what's your favorite morph of snake and what kind? Or what's your favorite morph of snake and what kind? Okay.
Favorite morph of snake and what kind? Whew. I'm gonna go with the silver pepper inland carpet. I think that's my favorite.
Those are I saw pictures. Those things are freaking.
Yeah.
Those are gorgeous. Absolutely freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
As much as I like those, I've got to go with the ivory jungles.
Yeah,
I love those, that pure black and white that they get.
Yeah. And that's a project that, like I said, you know, that's been breeding for 30 years, man. That's a long time to get to that. Turn a yellow and black snake into a white and black snake.
And I almost bought. I was gonna buy into it. Actually, is that show up in Hamburg where 2 Hamburgs ago.
Right.
I was gonna. I have his card here. So what is it? God, they were set up right next to Owen.
Eric Kohler.
Mid-grad Serpents.
Eric Kohler.
Eric Kohler. Yeah.
Yep. He's got some nice.
I was gonna buy one right then and there, but all he had was males.
Okay.
And it's like, man, it's like, if I'm gonna do it, it's like I'm getting
the female first. Yeah.
And or get a pair, but you know, I didn't want to get the male first and kind of, you know, work backwards in a sense. I definitely wanted to make sure, you know, I've learned that, you know, even from the ball python aspect, but carpets are worse folks, because you've got to wait like all but 4 years. So it's really important to get that female first on them.
Yeah. No, James, they're not in the States. Silver peppers, inlands are not in the States.
And Seekers, where are you at? Because they're saying that they're thinking of getting their first ball python soon, in the future getting a second one, and later a blood. But he says carpets aren't allowed.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I'd have to move from there.
And say, Seeker, where are you at that carpet pythons are banned?
Maybe it's like a 6-foot rule or something. Anything over 6 foot. You know how sometimes like counties and whatnot.
Canada. Okay.
Oh, okay. Canada.
Hey, look.
There's
what up,
Riley.
Thanks for tuning in, bro.
Yeah. British Columbia. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I heard Canada's got some really weird, goofy rules about stuff.
Yeah, like big stuff, right? Aren't they like all big stuff is banned?
I don't like. Most of the big stuff is banned. I know that some of the stuff is like, I don't think they can have ASFs up there. Like, there's all sorts of different things that they can't have and do. It's just like it would suck if you were in one of those. Okay, he says they can't even have Burmese pythons, but you know what we can have? Probably ball pythons, and that's about it. Or can you have, maybe they can have retics. by the way that they were.
Fiji iguanas. I think Canada can have Fiji iguanas, right? Can't they?
Those are those really the really bright green and blue ones, right?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of weird
Yeah,
looking a little
Canada
bit.
can
Like
have those, but
iguanas.
we can't have those for
We
some
can't
reason.
have those. Yeah.
Which makes no sense. I don't get it.
Yeah.
They're smaller
rules.
even, and we can't have them.
The rules, you know. Yeah, it's usually about the environment, right? They're nobody gives a shit about the actual environment that they're from, but like you can't keep them as a pet because you know that's a whole nother 3 hours, man.
Yeah. Rod says he's been replacing the fridge and out to dinner. All right. Well, hopefully you had a good dinner, and hopefully the fridge replacing didn't go too shabby. As I said, we can't have retics, but yes, Fiji's they can.
They can, yeah.
Oh man. Well, Riley, make sure, bro, you go back and you catch the replay on this one, brother. I'm happy to see it in the chat, though. I was wondering if you're going to show up. We were talking about you a little bit ago, though, too. So your ears might have been burning. Maybe that's why you decided to click on it.
I did. But, we said it 3 times, right? His name. He came out like Beetlejuice. There he is.
Hey, actually, I think he did come up 3 different times in the cast, and the third time he does pop up.
Yep.
And I think there might be something to that. You're going to have to try that on the next
Riley's good.
Coffee.
Yeah, he's good people. Riley's good people.
I do like Riley. Riley's awesome. Riley, between you, Riley, and Mike, you guys have helped me get through my whole season of carpet python breeding and all that stuff. Just between the 3 of you, I greatly appreciate all the words of wisdom, the advice, the knowledge that I got from all of you.
Yeah, man.
It definitely put my mind at ease with a lot of stuff. Everybody, that's going to be it for tonight. Greatly appreciate everybody that we're at 11 people now, which I understand. We were like up there really good. But obviously at 11 o'clock, people are getting ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
But next week I have my friend Alex at Florida Born Exotics as a guest. And then after that is Brandon Nixon at Nixon Reptiles. My brother Chris at S Reptilia will be on the 21st, and Charlie of Gray Rider Reptiles will be on the 28th. So we've got a nice lineup of guests. We will be talking about genetic testing while we have Charlie there from Gray Rider. So definitely do not miss that one. Riley says, thank you very much, guys. Glad I could help in some way. Dude, you really did, Riley. I appreciate it, bro. But we also need, if anybody, here comes the whole spiel again. I apologize. If you guys check out Nathan, please, at Infinite Possible Pythons, Killer Ball Python Project, Scaleless Corn Snakes, Kahua Geckos, and he is your one-stop shop for all of your branding needs. Definitely check him out if you like, especially the branding needs, folks. Between the ball pythons and the branding needs, that's where you got hit Nathan up at. Nathan's got some killer stuff ball python wise, and tablecloths for shows, backdrops, business cards. God, I drew a blank on that one. Business cards, t-shirts, stickers, all that swag stuff. Nathan can get you all hooked up. He is who I use for all of my stuff, and it is top-notch quality stuff, folks. So definitely check him out. Then also we got my buddy Chris at S Reptilia, which is your one-stop shop if you need a snake, basically. Blood pythons, ball pythons, boas, colubrids. He's working a couple different types of colubrids as well. So, check him out. If you're in the eastern Pennsylvania area, hit him up for rats. And he is also Pennsylvania's distributor of Cocoa to Go and the Chipper, which is by far, in my opinion, the best cocoa substrate on the market today. So definitely hit Chris up. And everybody's links are in the description down below. If you're not using Husbandry Pro as well, please, please, please click our affiliate link in the description down below for a free 30-day trial of Husbandry Pro. It is, and folks, I mean this honest to God. I wouldn't be pushing this thing if I didn't believe in it. It saves me so much time, and it truly is the best reptile record keeping and tracking software on the market today. Like I said, it saves me so much time. If someone buys a snake from me, I could send them the records through that. If I'm at a show, I have the little cage cards that I print out for shows. People can go up and scan the cage card, and it gives them all the information they could want down to the feedings. Like you could make it track whatever you want it to do. I've heard somebody uses it to track their oil changes and work on like vehicles. So you literally can use it for anything, and it's works great for all sorts of different animals. So definitely, it's not just snake related, but check it out. And free 30-day trial. You don't like it, just get rid of it. And then my last thing here is we are not affiliated with them yet, but Redline Shipping is who I've been using for my shipping. Use code Robin60 for 60% off 2 of your shippings. And folks, let me tell you, you get grade A service with Redline, awesome customer service, and on top of it, from what I've seen, just going through all the other shipping quotes and stuff, Redline comes out on top with the cheapest shipping rate. You don't sacrifice quality at all by getting a little bit cheaper. So definitely check them out. Use code Robin60. And if there's a little area to say where you got the code from, put it in that little section and say, you got it from me. Maybe that might help push them to, help join the family over here a little bit.
There you go.
But we got some comments here. All right. Good night, Ed Jason. Thank you very much for tuning in. Everybody, thank you so much again for tuning in. This was a little bit abnormally long compared to what I've been doing, but hey, it was a great night. I enjoyed it. I feel really bad though for Eric. I didn't realize you had to be up at 4 o'clock.
No worries, man. No worries. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
But hang out here 1 second while we end this. Everybody, I will see you next Sunday. This week's video, folks, is the clutch pulling of my carpet python clutch. So
nice.
Definitely make sure you guys watch that. The camera work is not the greatest because it was a solo clutch pulling. But I did the best I could. Clutch pullings are always better when you have a cameraman. I didn't have a cameraman or anybody. I had to do this thing solo. So definitely check it out. I was super pleased with how the clutch turned out there. So definitely check it out. And I'll see you next week, guys. Have a good one and take care.
See ya.